Li Fan maintained a calm expression and said, "Friend, you must be joking. I just heard you mention that the newly appointed secret envoy is also named Li Fan. If I were truly a spy for the Five Elders Association, why would I choose such a conspicuous name and draw unnecessary attention?" Huang Ranqi thought this made some sense and nodded slightly. Li Fan continued, "I also heard that before a cultivator joins the alliance, their identity is thoroughly verified. With the extraordinary abilities of the Immortal Alliance, if anything were amiss with me, it would surely be detected on the spot. In that case, you'd be the hero who exposes a spy and earns great merit. So, why worry?" After some consideration, Huang Ranqi was finally convinced by Li Fan's words. He took the lead in applying for a talisman of passage on Li Fan's behalf and then escorted him through the teleportation formation on the island, arriving at Kongyun Immortal City. Seeing the city floating amidst the clouds, Li Fan showed a hint of surprise. "I heard that the Immortal Alliance's base in the Kongyun Sea was an island. Why is it now a floating city? That's ancient history. If you're interested, you can ask around once you join the alliance," Huang Ranqi replied, clearly unwilling to elaborate. Li Fan didn't pursue the matter further. Soon, the two arrived at the entrance of the Tianshuan Mirror. "This is the Tianshuan Mirror," Huang Ranqi introduced. Li Fan appeared to listen attentively, but he was actually tense inside. As he pretended to focus, he secretly activated the sky shrouding palm secret technique and prepared his truth to make a swift escape if necessary. Based on his past life experience of merging with objects and traversing countless eras, Li Fan knew that the sky shrouding hand technique, which had been refined repeatedly in the struggle between the Covering Heaven Alliance and the mysterious net, could evade the Tianshuan Mirror's perception. In addition, the mysterious transformation of true spirit, derived from the derivation law Jade, was a mystical technique capable of altering one's aura, fate, blood, spiritual consciousness, and soul essence. Thus, the Tianshuan Mirror shouldn't detect that he and the secret envoy Li Fan of Kongyun Immortal City were actually the same person. Still, one could never be too cautious. With a multitude of thoughts flashing through his mind, Li Fan followed Huang Ranqi and entered the Tianshuan Mirror. To his relief, what he feared did not happen. The Tianshuan Mirror didn't recognize him as the secret envoy Li Fan, instead, it assigned him a new identity. Huang Ranqi, who received an introductory reward applicable to a foundation establishment cultivator, had no reason to suspect him further. After some brief conversation, Huang Ranqi took his leave, and Li Fan was able to rejoin the 10,000 Immortal Alliance under his true identity. It seems my guess was correct. The mirrored version of the Tianshuan Mirror, created by the empowerment process, is far weaker than the original. While part of this is due to my sky shrouding hand technique being ahead of its time, infiltrating was still surprisingly easy. No wonder the 10,000 Immortal Alliance is filled with spies from the Five Elders Association. Li Fan felt a sense of irony. On the day the Five Elders Association attacked the 10,000 Immortal Island, the Tianshuan Mirror inexplicably ceased to function, turning into a mere stone. This had inspired Li Fan to make this bold attempt, which ended as he had anticipated. Not lingering in the Tianshuan Mirror, he used his contribution points to purchase a storage ring. Then, he traveled through the teleportation formation to Tianling Prefecture. Without leaving Tianling City, Li Fan quietly waited there. If the Five Elders Association did indeed assault the Five Elements Great Cave Heaven, his past life experience indicated that a Dao integration cultivator would fall in the brutal battle. And the spectacle of a Dao integration cultivator's death would encompass the entire region. This would allow Li Fan to confirm the event as soon as it happened. Naturally, to avoid suspicion, Li Fan did not simply idle but wandered around the shops in Tianling City. Heavenly Spirit Flowers. Yes, please take a look at these, the shopkeeper said eagerly, displaying several potted flowers for Li Fan. The Heavenly Spirit Flower was a unique product of Tianling Prefecture. Each flower bloomed with a different number of petals, and each petal would display a unique scene. Whether a lush green mountain, a mighty river, or a snow-covered landscape. One flower could encapsulate the beauty of various places in the world, as if blessed by heaven itself. If you were to ask the flower's purpose, the answer would be, none. Its only use was ornamental. Unfortunately, the flower had a short lifespan. Once in bloom, it only lasted 7 days, or about a month if stored in a specially crafted wooden box. Moreover, it was extremely sensitive to any form of energy. Exposure to spiritual energy fluctuations or spatial teleportation could blur or even erase the scenes on its petals, rendering it worthless. Thus, cultivators who wished to admire the heavenly spirit flower had no choice but to come to Tianling Prefecture to see it in its prime. This rarity made the heavenly spirit flower even more precious outside of Tianling Prefecture. In his past life, during the great battle in Tianling Prefecture, the heavenly spirit flower almost went extinct. But with everyone's attention on the unprecedented conflict, no one cared to speculate about its price. Once the war ended and Tianling Prefecture began to recover, the flower gradually returned. However, cultivators later discovered that due to the lingering bloodshed in its growth environment, the scenes on the flower's petals no longer depicted natural beauty but rather horrifying images of cultivators slaughtering one another, a truly tragic sight. People longed for the once beautiful heavenly spirit flower, but the scenes on the petals were beyond control. Attempts to transplant the flower to other regions failed, as it would instantly wither. Thus, the heavenly spirit flower, once a unique spectacle of Tianling, vanished from the world. Recalling this past life anecdote, Li Fan carefully selected a 17-petaled heavenly spirit flower in the shop. This one, just one, won't you choose more? The shopkeeper seemed disappointed. One is enough, Li Fan said with a smile. 300 contribution points, the shopkeeper replied, quoting the price. Li Fan paid gladly and carefully took the sealed wooden box containing the heavenly spirit flower. In the box, the heavenly spirit flower bloomed vibrantly. With special treatment, it would stay in bloom for about 30 days. Read extra chapters on greater than Spirit Stone translation. However, Li Fan knew of a way to completely seal it in ice. Since the extinction of the heavenly spirit flower, many formerly secret techniques have gradually spread. One such technique, named collection of flowers, uses painting to permanently seal the heavenly spirit flower within a canvas. Originally, the collection of flowers wasn't intended specifically for the heavenly spirit flower. Rather, it was meant to immortalize every beautiful flower in the world. The author of the collection of flowers, Zhao Chong, was deeply passionate about flowers. He vowed to see every flower under heaven. So, he set out to record all flowers using brush and ink. Unfortunately, his talent for painting was mediocre, and his depictions were so far from reality they bordered on sacrilege. After racking his brains, Zhao Chong eventually pioneered a unique approach, a painting technique that directly sealed real flowers onto paper. Though it lacked artistic spirit, it was lifelike and extraordinarily realistic. In his previous life, Zhao Chong's collection of flowers did not include the heavenly spirit flower. Although he had long heard of its legendary beauty, he had intended to save the best for last. Consequently, he hesitated too long to capture it. After the war that ravaged Tianling Prefecture, its natural wonders were no more. Zhao Chong deeply regretted his delay, crying his lament to anyone who would listen. At this moment, Li Fan put the box containing the heavenly spirit flower into his pocket and continued wandering around the shop, feigning casual interest. Only after receiving a hostile glare from the shopkeeper did he reluctantly leave. After exiting the shop, he made his way to the City Discourse Tower Hall in the city and rented a room. Using the Tianquan mirror, he purchased 3 items: Ice Dew Image Capture Seal and 1,000 Colors Silk. Though not particularly valuable, they cost nearly all his contribution points. Taking out the Tianling flower's 17 petals, he placed them onto the 1,000 Colors Silk and then soaked them in ice dew. As cold air gradually spread across the petals, he pressed down with the image capture seal. Following the process Zhao Chong had described in his previous life, Li Fan carefully executed each step. The 1,000 Colors Silk emitted a rainbow of lights, reflecting through the Tianling flower and onto the image capture seal. Like threads being woven together, the sealed Tianling flower fused with the 1,000 Colors Silk and image capture seal. The light slowly faded, and soon a thin, transparent paper appeared in Li Fan's hands. Although it felt flat, the flower on it looked just like a real, blooming flower. Every petal's detail was vivid, and it seemed even to tremble slightly. That's it, Li Fan breathed a sigh of relief. All that remains is to add a protective layer of spiritual consciousness to prevent anyone from maliciously damaging it. But there's no rush. Li Fan looked at the artwork in his hand, knowing it would soon become one of a kind in the Xuanwang realm. Its value would be incalculable, far beyond mere wealth. its unique appeal could accomplish tasks contribution points alone couldn't. With a smile, he admired it a bit longer before carefully storing it away. He left the city central tower and wandered around Tianling City for 3 more days. On that day, a wave of exclamations arose in the city. "Look to the sky." Li Fan looked up, finally seeing the long-awaited scene. A rolling black swamp resembling dark clouds filled the sky, blocking out the sun. Though it seemed imposing, it was actually dry and lifeless within. At the same time, a voice emerged in Li Fan's mind. Dao Integration Cultivator Long Juyuan, after 286 years of cultivation, reached foundation establishment with the Scarlet Dragon Molt and achieved the Golden Core stage with the 4 techniques: Hidden Potential, Rising Dragon, Spell Breaking, and Life and Death Battle. By devouring the 100 Abyss Cave Heaven, he achieved Nascent Soul and transformed his spirit with the 1,000 Waters of Tianling. He offered the spirit of the Black Marsh and united with the Dao in body and spirit. In Tianling Prefecture, he was gravely injured by the cultivator Shu Wating. His spirit perished, and he returned his Dao to the heavens. It really is him. A sharp glint appeared in Li Fan's eyes. The fall of a Dao integration cultivator meant an unavoidable battle was imminent. Soon, the 10,000 Immortals Alliance would issue a war preparation announcement, and all provincial borders would be sealed. Li Fan had to leave this perilous place before then and return to the relative calm of Kanyan Sea, which had been relatively calm during the Battle of Tianling Prefecture. As other cultivators stood frozen, Li Fan had already slipped into the teleportation formation. Only after he vanished did murmurs fill Tianling City. Long Juyuan, when did he achieve Dao integration? No way. How did he die? Who was Shu Wating? He could actually kill a Dao integration cultivator. The most promising junior of the Long family has fallen just like that. This will certainly cause a stir. As the people of Tianling Prefecture processed their shock, disbelief spread across the 10,000 Immortals Alliance. A tremendous storm was forming, with Tianling Prefecture at its epicenter, spreading to engulf the entire alliance. Shortly after, in Kanyan Sea, He Zhenghao, anxiously monitoring his newly acquired supplies, was sweating bullets at every slight price fluctuation. Suddenly, the crisp mechanical voice of the Tianshuan mirror echoed in his ears. Starting from this moment, the 10,000 Immortals Alliance enters a Class B state of readiness. All regional protective formations are to be activated. All cultivators are prohibited from moving across states. All members of the Alliance's internal system must return to their state cities as soon as possible and await orders. Once any foreign cultivators are detected, they are to be killed on the spot, regardless of life or death. The announcement repeated 3 times before ending. He Zhenghao was initially stunned, then his eyes widened in shock as he jumped to his feet. The 10,000 Immortals Alliance was preparing for war with the 5 Elders Association. Terror seized his heart. He was about to contact Gao Yuan to discuss countermeasures when he remembered something and quickly looked down at the list of items on the Tianshuan mirror. Speculative traders are astonishingly quick to react. While most cultivators in the alliance were still reeling from the impending war, prices for survival-related items were already skyrocketing. The Heavenly Healing Pill, Standardized Big Dipper Armor, Divine Martial Thunder, and 100 Battle Formation Diagram, all the materials Li Fan had ordered He Zhenghao to stockpile, were rising in price at breakneck speed. Not only these items, but anything related to survival and combat in the Tianshuan mirror had surged in price. Everyone knew that the current supply couldn't possibly meet the cultivators' demand. With war looming, who could guarantee they wouldn't end up on the battlefield? The more protection and preparation one had, the better one's chances of survival. Compared to one's life, contribution points were inconsequential. Even at double the price, cultivators would pay willingly. In a flash of insight, He Zhenghao realized, the Lord's foresight is truly uncanny. Looking at the soaring prices of his stockpile, He Zhenghao was both delighted and terrified. The joy came from seeing his 100 million contribution points worth of goods increase by a third in such a short time. But he feared that hoarding goods might lead to punishment by the Immortal Alliance. Read extra chapters on greater than Spirit Stone translation. He Zhenghao's worries naturally disappeared once the prices for stockpiled resources doubled. 100 million contribution points, that's 100 million contribution points. He Zhenghao's eyes were bloodshot, and he trembled uncontrollably. The continuous surge in prices was a mental stimulus that made him feel as though he was soaring, almost reaching the heavenly realm. He Zhenghao swore that he had never been this exhilarated in his life. When the secret envoy handed me the list of resources, he casually mentioned that, since I'm in charge of this fundraising, my profit share would rise from 1% to 10%, unlike the previous 3 times. In just one day, I earned more contribution points than I ever could in a lifetime. His blood rushed to his head, and He Zhenghao felt his body nearly boiling over. Courage surged within him. Even the strict laws of the Immortal Alliance that he usually revered seemed less intimidating. Raise it. Let the price soar. Surely, I'm not the only one doing this. The law won't hold us all accountable. Besides, if the heavens fall, the secret envoy will take the hit. I'm only following orders. There's no way I'll be blamed. He Zhenghao mumbled to himself, quickly convincing himself and erasing any remaining fear. All he felt was ecstasy at the immense profit. Throughout the 10,000 Immortal Alliance, there were quite a few cultivators like He Zhenghao, celebrating in high spirits. In an unknown location, a great harvest, an absolute windfall. This profit directly covers all our past losses, with extra left over. See, I told you, that guy Li Fan has some real skill, and we bet on the right horse this time. Following his lead, we're eating well. Haha, fellow Taoist Liu, didn't you staunchly oppose this plan last time? Don't spout nonsense. You must be mistaken. Zhou Kebao watched his companions, expressions of excitement, feeling a thrill himself. To date, he had already earned nearly 2 million contribution points. Although he didn't know the exact profits of the others, judging by their reactions, it must have been considerable. Li Fan's ability to predict events is truly terrifying. To foresee this sudden and unprovoked outbreak of war. As for the reason behind the 10,000 Immortal Alliance's sudden declaration of war, Zhou Kebao and the others were still inquiring. So far, no clear answer had surfaced. I was too cautious. If only I'd invested a bit more back then. This thought suddenly flashed in Zhou Kebao's mind. Just then, a voice rang out. Where's fellow Taoist Long? The room fell silent for a moment. Yes, I remember him being quite decisive this time, investing at least 5 million contribution points in advance to stockpile resources. He must be making a fortune. Could he still be in seclusion, unaware that prices have skyrocketed? I'll contact him to share the good news. To their surprise, all their messages went unanswered, as if they'd disappeared into the void. The group exchanged puzzled glances. Just as they were filled with confusion, Long Yuyu appeared before them. He was disheartened, eyes bloodshot, his face pale. Everyone present felt a chilling premonition in their hearts. Finally, Zhou Kebao was the first to speak. Fellow Taoist Long, what happened? You look. Long Yuyu seemed absent, lost in thought. It took several calls from Zhou Kebao before he snapped back to reality. Looking at the people around him, Long Yuyu's lips trembled, and, using all his strength, he finally whispered. My elder brother has fallen. Boom, everyone felt like their brains had been struck hard, leaving them dazed. Long Juyuan, who had just ascended to Tao integration as an immortal sage, had fallen. In an instant, the room fell into dead silence. The joy from earning so many contribution points vanished without a trace. To them, losing a Tao integration cultivator was a loss that no amount of contribution points could ever replace. While stunned, they also felt a chill run down their spines. The war had just begun, and already a Tao integration cultivator had perished. The scale of this war was far beyond their imagination. How many lives would it claim? For a moment, even these profit-driven cultivators felt a sliver of fear. Meanwhile, in the administrative hall of Kongyuan City, chaos reigned. The Immortal Alliance had issued a war preparation notice, yet they could not reach the secret envoy no matter what they tried. A month ago, Li Fan had announced his plans to enter deep seclusion. But now, in the face of such a critical crisis, he had abandoned his post and left the mess to his subordinates. Wasn't that going a bit too far? The cultivators grumbled inwardly. Everyone, Gao Yuan, looking at the varied expressions on their faces, knocked on the table to get their attention. With the secret envoy absent, it's time for us to step up. He said solemnly, although the situation is unclear, there's no doubt this war won't end easily. We must prepare ourselves mentally. Especially since Kangyan borders the Five Elders Association. We must maintain constant patrols and guard against enemy cultivators. Gao Yuan paused, seeing the worry on everyone's faces, and tried to reassure them. But don't worry too much. After all, if the heavens fall, there will always be someone taller to hold them up. Since the Five Elders Association was completely defeated by us last time, they haven't fully recovered yet. Even nascent soul cultivators are scarce among them. Their strength isn't likely to force us to risk our lives. The others found some comfort in his words and relaxed slightly. However, Gao Yuan kept one thought to himself. If it came to the point where the remaining cultivators of Kangyan had to fight on the front lines, the brutality of this war. He shivered at the thought. While the entire 10,000 Immortal Alliance was thrown into chaos by the sudden war notice, Li Fan was quite relaxed. He drank from his cup filled with wine glowing with a faint blue light, raised his thumb in appreciation, and praised. Excellent wine, such a fine brew, and with fellow Taoist Sima here recounting thrilling tales from millennia ago. Life like this, what more could one ask for? Sima Changkong, his face flushed, replied, though we've only recently met, I feel like we're old friends. The concept of fate truly is a wondrous thing. Come, let's have another drink. With that, Sima Changkong tilted his head back and drank the wine. What story of the Xuanwang realm would you like to hear next? He asked proudly. Though the ancient period is beyond record, I'm quite familiar with the history of the 10,000 Immortal Alliance since its re-establishment. I heard that about 500 years ago, there was an uprising where small worlds united and launched a counterattack against the cultivation world. Please, do tell me about it. Li Fan replied, half dazed from the wine. Read extra chapters on greater than Spirit Stone translation. Counterattack against the immortal cultivation world, huh? Sima Changkong squinted slightly, as if recalling something. After a moment, he slowly spoke, mentioning this now, most cultivators refer to it as a farce. But in reality, the coalition of the small worlds was far more than just a trivial spectacle. Otherwise, why would the 10,000 Immortal Alliance and the Five Elders Association, which have always been adversaries, be forced to join forces? A faint gleam flashed in Li Fan's eyes. Moving closer, he asked in an uncertain tone, Alliance? You mean they united just to deal with the coalition of the small worlds? Sima, could it be that you're mistaken? Wasn't it said that the people of these small worlds are mere exiled mortals? Why would we cultivators struggle so much against this bunch of ants? Besides, we have the longevity immortal heavenly sovereign overseeing everything. Could they really have defeated us? Sima Changkong was unperturbed by Li Fan's disbelief. Instead, he smiled faintly and flicked his finger, sending a drop of blood between them. The blood drop hovered midair, pulsing as if alive, then spread outwards to form a canvas of misty blood. On this blood canvas, scene after scene of thrilling battles appeared. One side of the battle seemed to be the cultivators of the Xuanwang realm. But the other side, capable of flight and other supernatural feats, clearly wasn't mortal either. Their fighting techniques varied, yet they could go toe-to-toe with the cultivators. Some relied purely on physical strength, enduring attacks from flying swords and spells with their bodies. They would approach swiftly, tearing cultivators apart with their bare hands. Others stayed in the distance, manipulating strange energy from afar, striking down from the heavens, targeting cultivators with pinpoint accuracy. Most disturbingly, some were not even humanoid, appearing as transparent, white, human-like skins. They drifted through the battlefield, and whenever they encountered a severely wounded cultivator, they attached themselves to them. To the amazement of all, those who had been near death would spring back to life as soon as these white skins adhered to them. Even those missing limbs would experience regeneration and recover their combat strength once possessed. Li Fan stared intently at the constantly shifting scenes in the blood screen, his expression growing graver. Where are our higher-ranking cultivators from the Xuanwang realm? Did the Tao integration and longevity immortal stage experts just sit back and watch this slaughter unfold? Li Fan asked, his voice tinged with frustration. Sima Changkong shook his head slightly. Not at all. Naturally, they had their own adversaries. Although our ancestors couldn't witness the battles of the stronger cultivators firsthand due to their limited cultivation level, it's said that we in the Xuanwang realm suffered devastating losses as well. With a sigh, Sima Chengkong continued, for nearly 500 years, neither side has been willing to reignite the conflict. They both chose to focus on recuperation. Li Fan was astonished. Were they really that strong? Were these people truly from the small worlds? Yes, and no. Sima Chengkong summoned a fish-like spirit beast, poured another drink for the two of them, and continued. They were nothing more than pawns under someone else's control. The true mastermind behind them lies elsewhere. Li Fan perked up, intrigued. What do you mean by that? It seems their origins trace back to the time just after the ancient calamity descended. The details are sparse, even in the records of our ancestors. However, from scattered post-war accounts, we know that they appeared to be a group of those who had left and returned. Sima Chengkong looked puzzled as he spoke slowly. Not only did the Dao integration cultivators of our Xuanwang realm refer to them as traitors, but even cultivators who didn't know their identities would feel a deep-seated hatred at the sight of them. During the battles, bolts of lightning would even descend from the heavens, striking these people directly. It's as if the entire Xuanwang realm despised them. Left and returned, traitors, Li Fan murmured, sinking into contemplation. Sima Chengkong's descriptions, combined with his previous experiences in senior sister Zhao's illusion, stirred some guesses within him. In the past, when various calamities like the incompatibility of different cultivation methods and the immortal mortal miasma descended, the 10 great sects initially planned to unite and face these crises together. But as the situation deteriorated too quickly, each sect had to fend for itself, let alone assist each other. When disaster loomed, each sect made its own choice. Some vanished completely in the annals of history due to internal strife. Others sealed themselves off, hiding from the world, clinging to life. But some, like the Nanming Demon Beast Mountain and the Heavenly Sword sect, chose to flee from the Xuanwang realm altogether. As Emperor Wen once said, within any group, individuals will make their own choices. Without an absolute leader, it's impossible to act with a unified will. Each cultivator chose differently, which is only natural. When they left, they may have taken something with them. Perhaps that's why even the Xuanwang realm itself holds a grudge against them. It's uncertain why they returned, but for them to return unharmed despite the immense pull of the Immortal ruins, they must be extremely powerful. Li Fan's mind gradually settled as he turned to Sima Chengkong with even greater admiration. As expected of the Xuanwang realm's historian, over the past millennium, countless forgotten or hidden stories could be traced back to Sima Chengkong. Ever since Li Fan returned from the Tianling prefecture, he had come to Sima Chengkong's underwater crystal residence to avoid the war's impact. Thanks to his previous interactions with Sima's projection, coupled with his extensive knowledge of obscure facts, he quickly earned Sima's favor. The two enjoyed daily banquets, freely discussing the Xuanwang realm's history, thoroughly enjoying each other's company. To prevent outside disturbances and gather more information, Li Fan even volunteered to help set up stealth and protective formations for Sima Chengkong's crystal abode. Impressed by Li Fan's enthusiasm, Sima felt he'd found a kindred spirit, and their bond deepened. Peace is temporary, while war is the eternal theme of history. After a long silence, Sima Chengkong sighed, setting down his raised cup, his enthusiasm waning. Why do you say that? Li Fan trailed off in sudden realization. Has the war between the 10,000 Immortal Alliance and the 5 Elders Association begun? Sima Chengkong nodded heavily. Who knows how many cultivators will perish on the battlefield? This is the way of the heavens, we are not the longevity immortal heavenly sovereigns. How could we resist? Drink, let's drink. Li Fan poured another drink for Sima, consoling him. You're right. Sima Chengkong drained his cup, swallowing both the fine wine and his sorrow. Li Fan then smoothly shifted the topic elsewhere. Time flew by, and a year passed in the blink of an eye. The war between the 10,000 Immortal Alliance and the 5 Elders Association had reached a fever pitch, and Li Fan had fully settled in Sima Chengkong's residence, not leaving once in the entire year. Out of wine, on this particular day, just as Li Fan was about to invite his friend for another round of drinks, he received this unexpected response. He was utterly stunned. Sima Chengkong's face turned slightly red, as if he wanted to say something but held back. After a moment, he scratched the back of his head awkwardly and explained. Here in this Kongyan Sea, I don't have many close friends, so I didn't prepare much. Brother Li, you've been my guest for quite some time. Li Fan calculated quickly and remarked in surprise, I hadn't realized time passed so quickly, it's been a whole year already. Apologetically, he continued, since Brother Sima finds my presence a burden, it's time for me to take my leave. But before I go, please let me know the ingredients used to make that wine. I'll collect some for you. Before he could finish, Sima Chengkong's face flushed even more. He quickly waved his hands and said, Brother Li, no, it's not a complaint. It's just. Sima Chengkong seemed ready to explain, but for some reason, he stopped, shook his head, and sighed in defeat. Never mind, Brother Li, please stay here for a few days. I'll be back soon. Without waiting for a response, he left in a hurry. Li Fan watched Sima Chengkong's departing figure with a wry smile. What an interesting person. Though he hadn't gone out all year, Li Fan wasn't entirely unaware of the outside world. His clone, Zhou Qingong, had been running himself ragged. Setting aside numerous trivial matters, the most urgent task was the monthly list of recruited cultivators. Even though the Kongyunsi's forces were severely weakened, the Immortal Alliance headquarters continued to issue conscription orders. However, given the Kongyunsi's current state, most recruited cultivators were spared from direct combat. They were primarily assigned to logistics and support roles. Still, no one could guarantee that the war wouldn't expand, eventually involving them in the crossfire. As a result, no one wanted to be sent to the Tianling prefecture. Compiling the recruitment list had become a challenging task. Initially, it was Li Fan's duty as a secret envoy to finalize this list. But with Li Fan in seclusion, the task technically fell to his trusted associates He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan, who had been authorized to make decisions in his absence. Yet, He Zhenghao was known as an easygoing person, while Gao Yuan was skilled at diplomacy and careful to avoid offending anyone. Neither wanted to be responsible for sending people to possible death. If the individuals sent to battle perished, that was one thing. But if they survived and returned with accolades, it could create lasting enmity. Therefore, they secretly approached the more reclusive Zhou Qingong to ask for help. Naturally, Zhou Qingong declined. There was no reason for him to take on such a troublesome task. But soon enough, He Zhenghao brought out his trump card. Fellow Taoist Zhou, take a look. He took out a scroll and spread it out before Zhou Qingong. Lu Yihang, 10 million contribution points. Zhou Peng, 800,000 contribution points. Sikong Yi, 300,000 contribution points. Li Fan's gaze swept across several familiar names on the scroll, and he asked, knowingly, what is this? He Zhenghao cleared his throat. This is the record of contributions from last year's investment plan. The year is up, so it's time to return the capital and profits. Thanks to the guidance of our secret envoy, I sold off all our accumulated supplies when prices soared over 3 times their original cost. The final profit was about. He Zhenghao paused, his face revealing a barely concealed pride. 314 million contribution points. Li Fan gasped in amazement. That much. I had heard that supplies were scarce on the battlefield, but I didn't realize prices had skyrocketed so much. Doesn't the 10,000 Immortal Alliance regulate this? Regulate it? How could they? Business is about mutual consent. If you don't want to buy, you don't have to. But the more prepared you are, the better your survival chances on the battlefield. If you don't buy, someone else will. Unlike his hesitant demeanor from a year ago, He Zhenghao now appeared quite nonchalant in the face of Zhou Qingong. Reaction. Li Fan simply shook his head, refraining from further comment. So, what's the point of showing me this? Li Fan asked, feigning confusion. He Zhenghao exchanged a look with Gao Yuan, glanced around, and then set up a concealment formation. Feeling assured, he marked 5 names on the scroll and struck through each one heavily. Realization dawning, Li Fan gasped, these cultivators died in the Tianling prefecture battle. Quiet, quiet, He Zhenghao jumped, quickly gesturing for silence. Please, don't spread this around. I'm only telling you because you're one of us. He added with a hint of reproach. Li Fan nodded repeatedly, showing his understanding. So, no one is left to claim these people's contributions? He asked quietly. He Zhenghao spoke with a tinge of excitement, exactly. I secretly confirmed it. These 5 indeed fell on the battlefield in Tianling prefecture. Moreover, they didn't leave any wills. The 5 total a principal of 330,000 contribution points, along with a bonus of another 330,000. Li Fan interrupted, didn't you say the profit was 3 times? Why only a 30,000 bonus? He Zhenghao snorted, 30,000 is already generous. The secret envoy adjusted the bonus ratio out of compassion. According to the original agreement, we only needed to pay 50% of the principal as interest each year. But the secret envoy is benevolent, so I won't argue. In short, these 660,000 contribution points are unclaimed now. All I need is for you to help handle this matter, and they'll be yours, He Zhenghao said enticingly. Zhou Qingong was clearly tempted. Yet he hesitated, showing a hint of reluctance. Will this go unnoticed? Taking the contributions of the dead feels taboo. Also, does the secret envoy know about this? Li Fan asked deliberately. He Zhenghao's eyes flickered as he patted his chest in assurance. Don't worry, fellow Taoist Zhou. The list of contributors is confidential, known only to a few of us. There's no risk of exposure. I even asked the secret envoy, and he said I could handle this as I saw fit, He Zhenghao stated confidently. I see, Li Fan studied He Zhenghao for a long moment. Only when He Zhenghao started feeling uncomfortable did he look away. All right, I'll take care of it, Li Fan agreed. He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan exchanged a look, their faces lighting up with joy. Thank you for your help, fellow Taoist. He Zhenghao smiled warmly and clasped his hands as he left with Gao Yuan. Watching their receding figures, Li Fan's expression was unreadable. In just 1 year, they've been corrupted into this. Not long ago, these two still believed I was a fallen longevity immortal heavenly sovereign and hoped to follow me for a prosperous future. Now they even dare to deceive and disrespect me. A cold glint flashed in Li Fan's eyes. After all, the battle in Tianling Prefecture was initiated by him. He had foreseen that some cultivators participating in the investment plan would likely fall in the conflict there. However, he never mentioned this to He Zhenghao. It was all to see how He Zhenghao would handle the unclaimed capital left behind by those who perished. And the result, the human heart truly cannot withstand temptation. Especially when faced with such significant contributions. When one becomes accustomed to astronomical figures in the billions, how could one be content with a meager salary? It's inevitable that they'd seek side earnings. Li Fan shook his head slightly. He wasn't particularly disappointed, only that he had once considered providing He Zhenghao a way out when the crimson flame will burn the sea and would eventually erupt, partly as recognition for his hard work and his contribution to the mountain-sitting technique. But now, perhaps in the next life. Expressionless, Li Fan began selecting personnel from the Kongyan system for the upcoming recruitment. Indeed, as the war commenced, the first to be summoned were members within the structure of the Immortal Alliance. After all, those who enjoyed the benefits of the 10,000 Immortal Alliance also had to bear corresponding responsibilities. Zhu Yongshou, this one spoke disrespectfully before, mark him down. Qi Yan, I don't recall much about him. He wasn't present at either the reconstruction ceremony of Kongyan City or the foundation ceremony of Immortal City. Mark him down as well. Zhao Kuo, feedback officer for the 10,000 Immortal Alliance Kongyan City. Li Fan raised an eyebrow, momentarily puzzled. He had spent many cycles in the Kongyan Sea and governed its affairs for some time now, yet he had never had the pleasure of meeting this individual. Who will die if not you? With a stroke of his brush, Li Fan marked him down. Before long, the cultivators drafted list that had left He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan in a bind was completed. Overall, Li Fan's selection of cultivators was quite casual. To him, even if they survived the Tianling Prefecture battle, they wouldn't escape the crimson flame burning the sea. It was merely a question of sooner or later. The recruitment order bore the seal that Li Fan had specifically left before entering seclusion, marked with the secret envoy sigil. All that remained was for Zhou Qingong to add his stamp to officially issue it. Shortly after, Zhou Qingong completed the final step. Injustice has its perpetrator, debts have their collector. It was all Zhou Qingong's doing, nothing to do with me, Li Fan. Li Fan felt no pressure. Taoist Zhou is truly efficient. Haha, looks like I'll need your assistance again next time. He Zhenghao's praise soon came through. Li Fan responded with a faint smile. Meanwhile, at the Crystal Palace beneath the sea. After only half a day, Sima Changkong, who had been gathering ingredients for brewing, hurried back. Oh, brother Sima, you've returned so quickly. Li Fan asked in mild surprise. Ah, Taoist friend, you misunderstand. Sima Changkong shook his head, explaining, something urgent came up, so I had to rush back. Gathering the ingredients for the heavenly green brew. Isn't easy, and I haven't had time to prepare them yet. You'll have to wait a while longer if you want to drink heartily. He looked a bit apologetic. No worries. Li Fan waved dismissively, indicating he didn't mind. What's happened to make you return in such a hurry? Li Fan asked curiously. Something remarkable has appeared on the battlefield in Tianling Prefecture, and my blood-split clone was unfortunately destroyed. So, I had to return to craft a new one, Sima Chengkong replied, looking a bit weary. Remarkable. Li Fan's eyes narrowed as he led Sima Chengkong back into the Crystal Palace to sit. Yes, when I saw it, I was taken aback. Sima Chengkong, evidently fatigued from using his teleportation technique to return, sat to rest. After a short break, he took out a small black canister. With a hand gesture, he crushed it, and a torrent of blood poured out, fresh enough to still carry a sharp metallic scent. The blood coalesced midair, gradually forming a vaguely human shape. Without concern for Li Fan's presence, Sima Chengkong touched his brow with his finger, extracting a drop of prismatic blood, which he merged into the blood figure. A soft glow emitted from it, and before long, a replica of Sima Chengkong stood before them. After dressing his clone, the replica clasped his hands in respect to the two of them before departing toward Tianling Prefecture. Only then did Sima Chengkong exhale, though now visibly weaker, his face ashen, barely able to stand. Seeing this, Li Fan quickly helped him to a seat. After a while, Sima Chengkong regained some strength. How are you feeling, fellow Taoist? Li Fan asked, prioritizing his well-being over immediate questions about the battlefield in Tianling Prefecture. No problem, just need to rest a bit, Sima Chengkong replied weakly, shaking his head. That's good. I initially thought this was merely a blood-split clone, rather than your original form. After cultivating the Bloodline Historical Archive, there's hardly such a thing as an original form anymore, Sima Chengkong said with a bitter smile. The Kongyan Sea is the only place that has enough blood essence left for me to immediately craft a new clone. Hearing this, Li Fan nodded in understanding. Soon, he frowned. Brother Sima, crafting these clones seems to drain your energy substantially. You're correct, Taoist friend. I need to drink heavenly green brew regularly to replenish my lost vitality, Sima Chengkong admitted. Oh no, I've been drinking so much of Brother Sima's brew without realizing, Li Fan exclaimed with exaggerated regret. Haha, Brother Li, there's no need to feel bad. Sima Chengkong reassured him. As I've said before, cultivating our Sima family's Bloodline Historical Archive makes our lifespan similar to mortals. Life is fleeting, just a few short decades, gone in the blink of an eye. In such a short existence, having a true friend like you is worth it. So live for today. I'm grateful you drink with me daily, how could I blame you? Sima Chengkong chuckled in reply. However, I was worried that spending days drinking with me might delay your cultivation, so I initially wanted to advise you against it. But observing your open-minded nature, I believe you know your limits well. Thus, I'll refrain from saying more. Sima Chengkong rested briefly, recovering some of his vitality before continuing. Li Fan's gaze flickered but said nothing more, only pretending to be remorseful. Brother Sima's heartfelt words truly shame me. Haha, if you keep acting this way, you're treating me as an outsider. Sima Chengkong feigned anger. Li Fan could only sigh in silence. After this heartfelt exchange, the bond between the two grew even stronger. After a short pause, Li Fan brought the topic back to the battlefield in the Tianling Prefecture. Brother Sima, what exactly did you witness on the battlefield? He frowned as he asked. Given your comprehensive understanding of the history of the Xuanwang realm, to receive such high praise from you, it must have been an immensely terrifying force. Sima Chengkong sighed deeply. You flatter me, my friend. However, your latter statement is indeed correct. The 10,000 Immortal Alliance has deployed a truly devastating weapon this time. As he spoke, he activated a drop of his blood, attempting to create a blood screen to show Li Fan what had transpired, as he had done before. Images indeed began to appear on the blood screen. But then, Sima Chengkong's expression abruptly changed. How can this be? He exclaimed in shock, his face full of disbelief. Li Fan fixed his gaze on the blood screen. It showed the overwhelming Five Elders Association cultivators forming a formation and encircling a group of 10,000 Immortal Alliance cultivators. The Alliance's side, despite being surrounded and numbering only about 100, showed no trace of fear. Each was incredibly valiant, as if empowered by some mysterious force. They charged fearlessly toward an enemy outnumbering them 100-fold. This seemingly one-sided battle with a foregone conclusion suddenly shifted dramatically. At the center of the 10,000 Immortal Alliance cultivators, one individual raised something high. And then, without warning, swaths of 5 Elders Association cultivators fell from the sky. They crashed to the ground, bloody and immobile, groaning in agony. The 10,000 Immortal Alliance cultivators appeared to have anticipated this. They swiftly and mercilessly harvested the lives of their enemies. For a moment, the sky was filled with a strange, overlapping phenomenon of falling bodies, forming a bizarre and grim tableau. How could this happen? Sima Changkong murmured in disbelief as he stared at the recorded scene on the blood screen, his expression dazed. Seeing Sima Changkong's strange reaction, Li Fan suddenly thought of something and asked, "Brother, does the scene on this blood screen differ from what you witnessed with your own eyes?" "Precisely." Sima Changkong nodded immediately. "What I saw was a cultivator holding a small, square mirror aloft. From the heavens, countless green threads descended. It was precisely these inexplicable green threads that instantly disabled the 5 Elders Association cultivators." But why? Even after explaining, Sima Changkong remained unsettled, clearly struggling to accept what had happened. For someone like Sima Changkong, whose purpose was to faithfully record historical events, this inability to document the truth was a significant blow. Unrecordable, green energy, Li Fan narrowed his eyes. "So, it's really the mysterious net. I had speculated before that the net had descended upon the world. Indeed, once the war escalated, the 10,000 Immortal Alliance couldn't resist using it. However, the current mysterious net differs from the Tianshuan spirit-locking formation I encountered in my previous life. It's surprising that a single handheld mirror can summon it. Is it an incomplete prototype, or?" Li Fan fell into deep thought. "No, I must find a way to document it," Sima Changkong muttered, still visibly shaken, seemingly on the verge of obsession. "You're overthinking this, Brother Sima. Even if you can't directly record it through images or language, you can still indirectly describe its existence," Li Fan reminded him. Sima Changkong froze momentarily. Then he lit up with joy. "How foolish of me." He smacked his forehead, forced out a few drops of blood, and fused them into the blood screen. The blood merged into distorted text that became part of the screen. Greater than, the 10,000 Immortal Alliance and the 5 Elders Association clashed in the northeast of the Tianling Prefecture. Greater than, threads of green light descended from the heavens. Greater than, those affected lost their spiritual powers and fell to the ground. ... As the characters on the surface gradually stabilized, they seemed about to merge completely with the blood curtain. Suddenly, a faint green line emerged from the distorted blood characters. "Not good." Sima Changkong's face turned pale instantly as he cried out in alarm. Before he could finish his sentence, the green line had already transformed into a torrent of green light. The green light wreaked havoc, distorting the scenes recorded within the blood curtain beyond recognition. Then, it abruptly withdrew and condensed into a single point of light. For a moment, there was silence. The green point suddenly erupted. "Retreat." The moment the green line appeared, even before Sima Changkong could shout his warning, Li Fan had already pushed the purple cloud divine thunder escape to its limit. At the same time, 2 bony wings emerged from his back, augmented by the soaring peng technique. Using the fastest speed he had ever achieved since stepping into the world of cultivation, Li Fan fled into the distance. However, Li Fan hadn't anticipated that the mysterious net's reaction would be this intense, more violent than the uproar it caused previously in the 10,000 Immortal Islands Martial Hall. The green point exploded, and the shockwaves swept out in all directions in an instant. As the green light neared his body, Li Fan felt a pang of unwillingness but still prepared to invoke his protective technique, truth. However, he quickly swallowed the remaining, truth, part of the chant. Because he realized that the charging energy of truth for body protection hadn't changed at all. Was it just a false alarm? Li Fan stopped fleeing immediately and hovered in midair. After waiting for a while and finding nothing unusual, with the surroundings as calm as before, he hesitated briefly but decided to return and investigate. Inside the Crystal Palace, everything appeared as it was before. But an eerie silence pervaded the space. Sima Changkong remained in his spot, the expression of terror frozen on his face, his body utterly motionless. "Brother Sima," Li Fan called out from a distance. There was no response. After a moment, Li Fan cautiously approached. "Brother Sima." Although he could still faintly sense the vitality within Sima Changkong, for some reason, there was no reaction from him whatsoever. Moreover, that trace of vitality seemed as though it had solidified. Feeling that something was amiss, Li Fan began to back away slowly. Pop! At that instant, Sima Chengkong's entire body suddenly burst from within. What sprayed out was not fresh blood and flesh but pools of viscous green liquid. The green fluid splattered all over the floor of the Crystal Palace. Li Fan narrowly avoided the green liquid's assault. Staring at the obliterated remains of Sima Chengkong, his face twitched slightly. The green slime covering the ground seemed to retain some form of self-awareness even after Sima Chengkong's death. Like a writhing worm, it crawled slowly toward the surrounding area. The hard surface of the Crystal Palace emitted a sizzling sound as it was corroded by the green slime. Witnessing this terrifying scene, Li Fan couldn't help but take a deep breath. What a domineering mysterious net. It can even trace the medium trying to record it and obliterate the target. Wait, realizing something, Li Fan's expression changed. He pulled out a blood-red talisman from his storage ring and concentrated his mind on it. Taoist Sima, are you all right? He waited for a long time but received no response. This is bad, even all his clones are gone, Li Fan muttered, his face twitching. The mysterious net's pursuit ability was frighteningly powerful. Initially, Li Fan thought only the clone in the Kangyun Sea was destroyed. But now, it seemed, Sima Chengkong's fate was sealed. The blood-red communication talisman was crafted with Sima Chengkong's own blood essence, a unique refinement. As long as any of Sima Chengkong's blood-split clones existed in the world, Li Fan could contact him through it. But now, all his attempts to communicate were met with silence. The outcome was clear. The image of Sima Chengkong's laughter, discussions over wine, and philosophical debates with Li Fan remained vivid in his mind. But life is unpredictable, here one moment, gone the next. Sima Chengkong, farewell, I'll find you in the next life for a drink. Li Fan didn't feel overwhelming sadness. Instead, he shook his head lightly, wielded the 5 Elements Annihilation Sword, and destroyed the underwater Crystal Palace, creating a makeshift tomb for Sima Chengkong. To achieve this level of destruction, the mysterious net's offensive power is even stronger than I remember from my previous life. This is no half-finished product, Li Fan said grimly. Since the anchor point 9 years ago, many nascent soul and higher-level cultivators from various states Tianji and formation halls were summoned to the 10,000 Immortals Alliance headquarters. After that, there had been no news from them. Later, the 10,000 Immortals Alliance issued a recruitment order, gathering the most talented formation masters from across the land. 4 years had passed since then, and now it seemed they had produced results. The 10,000 Immortals Alliance has revealed their trump card. Let's see how the 5 Elders Association responds next. With my earlier warning, they shouldn't be entirely unprepared. Unfortunately, the battlefield in Tianling Prefecture is too dangerous. The only one capable of live updates, Taoist Sima, has perished. The detailed battle situation is still unclear, Li Fan thought with a trace of regret. However, one thing was certain, with a weapon like the mysterious net, the war in Tianling Prefecture was nearing its conclusion. It's progressing faster than expected. But for me, this is good news. I've already achieved Golden Core perfection. Everything is ready. Once the war ends and the 10,000 Immortals Alliance relocates the 5 Elements Great Cave Heaven to their stronghold, I'll explore Tianling Prefecture Void. Feedback from his many subordinates in the Kangyun Sea continued to flow steadily into Li Fan's Dantian, stored within his Calamity Body. The first Calamity Body was nearly complete. At his current cultivation speed, Li Fan estimated, if I break through to the Nascent Soul stage, I'll likely reach mid-stage Nascent Soul shortly after. Shaking his head, he put aside his fantasies. Before the war ended, caution was still the priority. Li Fan decided not to seek a new location. Instead, he used the 5 Elements Annihilation Sword to carve out a cave dwelling deep in an ocean trench. With formations and the sky-shrouding hand, secret technique sealing the area, he finally felt secure. Over the past year, Li Fan had also visited the fallen immortal realm. However, returning to the beast-taming sect from the Nanming Beast Mountain was a long journey. Most of his time during that trip was spent on the road. While cultivating the improved creation furnace technique taught by Mr. Bai, Li Fan, inhabiting Little Black, felt calm and focused. But when he returned to the sect on Shaoqing with Shu Ke, he discovered that Luya and Emperor Sanmo were nowhere to be found. Even when Li Fan left, they still hadn't reappeared. There's still half a year before the next entry. Let's prepare for forming my nascent soul first. As Tao Deviation Stone's brilliance flickered in his mind, insights from countless nascent soul manuals resurfaced. Revisiting them, comparing, and validating, Li Fan felt he gained even more. Time flew in cultivation. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed. While Li Fan's true body immersed itself in meditation, one of his clones, Zhou Qingong, suddenly received an invitation card. Lu Yiheng. Li Fan's expression shifted. The true cauldron of medicine king hadn't returned. Clearly, this Lu Yiheng wasn't the adopted son of the medicine king sect's master Lu Rushan. In that case, he must be from the Five Elders Association. Li Fan deduced. In their previous transaction, Li Fan had asked the Five Elders Association to donate 10 million contribution points. Under Lu Yiheng's alias to He Zhenghao. Sure enough, Lu Yiheng's name appeared in the fundraising records. Something urgent must have happened. They didn't leave contact details before, yet now they risk exposure to seek me out. Li Fan opened the invitation card, memorized the meeting location, and then destroyed it with spiritual energy. Late at night, he quietly set out alone. The meeting point was on Immortal Island 500 miles northwest of Kongyan Immortal City. At the island's center stood a bamboo forest. Within the forest was a humble hut. Li Fan stepped inside and, upon seeing the figure within, his eyes narrowed. It's him. Though the man concealed his appearance with secret techniques, Li Fan instantly recognized him as the Five Elders Association's contact from their previous transaction regarding the 10,000 Immortals Alliance entrance exam. What should I call you? During our last meeting, I didn't even notice you weren't the real Zhou Qingong. Hey, when my boss told me, I was truly shocked, the man said sarcastically. Did you risk so much to find me just to ask that? Ridiculous. Li Fan snorted, turning to leave. The Five Elders cultivator's expression changed instantly. Wait, he hurried to block Li Fan, softening his tone. Fellow Taoist, let's talk things through. Li Fan gave him a sidelong glance before returning to his seat. The Five Elders cultivator heaved a sigh of relief and explained his purpose for the meeting. The Schwantian spirit ceiling formation diagram. Li Fan squinted and immediately refused. I don't have it. Instead of being disappointed, the Five Elders cultivator seemed encouraged. Taoist, you didn't ask what the formation was but declined outright. That only proves you know of it. Please, you must help us. His tone was sincere and pleading. Read extra chapters on greater than Spirit Stone translation. Although Li Fan wasn't entirely sure what the opponent meant by the so-called Schwantian spirit ceiling formation. However, it wasn't hard to infer that the term referred to the mysterious net, which had begun to demonstrate its extraordinary potential on the battlefield of Tianling Prefecture. Without betraying any emotion, Li Fan probed, based on our calculations, even with the assistance of the Schwantian spirit ceiling formation, the Five Elders Association shouldn't be losing ground so rapidly or finding itself in such a dire position, correct? The other party sighed and admitted, we truly underestimated them this time. Who could have imagined that the 10,000 Immortals Alliance would be able to recreate this ancient formation so quickly? And it seems to be even more formidable than the recorded descriptions. The Five Elders Association cultivator spoke with frustration. Our countermeasures haven't been fully prepared yet. That's why the situation on the Tianling Prefecture battlefield has become rather precarious for now. That's why we urgently need a method to weaken their formation. Li Fan remained silent, rhythmically tapping his fingers on the table as if deep in thought. To acquire the formation diagram for the Schwantian spirit ceiling formation, even for us, would come at an enormous cost. Some comrades who have infiltrated the 10,000 Immortals Alliance would likely need to sacrifice their lives. And even then, success is far from guaranteed. After a long pause, Li Fan finally spoke, his tone hesitant. This matter is of great significance. I cannot make a decision on my own. Let's do this, give me 3 days, and I'll return here with an answer. Although the Five Elders Association cultivator was anxious, he recognized the validity of Li Fan's reasoning and reluctantly nodded in agreement. By the way, let's meet at a different location next time. These are turbulent times, and it's better to err on the side of caution. With that, he gave Li Fan the coordinates of another island. Li Fan clasped his hands in farewell and left swiftly, returning to the Kongyuan immortal city. Tianshuan spirit locking, Xuantian sealing spirit. Ancient times, Tianshuan mirror. Xuantian sect, huh. In his secluded chamber, Li Fan's gaze flickered as he sank into contemplation. That scene on the battlefield, where countless cultivators plummeted from the sky to the ground in an instant, it felt oddly familiar. That's right, Nine Mountains Prefecture. Within Nine Mountains Prefecture, the 9 mountain ranges had the peculiar property of preventing cultivators from flying over them. In his previous life, Li Fan had traveled to the 10,000 Laws Chamber of Commerce in Nine Mountains Prefecture for procurement. There, he had witnessed the tragic fate of several defiant cultivators who fell to their deaths. Could there be some connection here? Li Fan sifted through his memories, recalling various documents he had read in the past. According to legend, the 9 great mountains of Nine Mountains Prefecture were formed from the meridians of a beast of immense size that had perished in ancient times. The 9 mountains were named Tianchong, heavenly length Tianduan, heavenly shortness Tianshu, heavenly void Tiansu, heavenly promptness Tianji, heavenly knot Tiandai, heavenly substitution Tianlao, heavenly prison Tiandong, heavenly movement, and Tianchi, heavenly fineness. These mountains were said to secretly form a formation, destabilizing the space in Nine Mountains Prefecture and making even teleportation formation ineffective. This information was something Li Fan had known for some time. Back then, he dismissed the idea of a beast's meridians transforming into mountain ranges as a fanciful ancient tale befitting mythology. However, after personally visiting Nanming Mountain, the sacred ground of ancient beasts within the fallen immortal realm, and witnessing many fearsome creatures from ancient times, Li Fan began to notice certain discrepancies in the legend. The issue was simple: if the legend were true, the size of this beast was unfathomable. Nine Mountains Prefecture spanned an area that had taken Li Fan half a year to traverse. A beast large enough to have its meridians cover an entire prefecture, what kind of terrifying existence could that have been? Compared to it, beings like the Scarlet Nine-Head, Purple Headless, and Azure Divine Dragon were mere ants. While size doesn't necessarily correlate with power, Li Fan couldn't believe that a beast capable of forming the 9 mountains would be weak. Perhaps, this unknown beast holds clues to the origins of the Xuantian spirit sealing formation. Although the name alone suggested a connection to the ancient Xuantian sect, Li Fan couldn't rule out the possibility of mere coincidence. Being meticulous wouldn't hurt. Thus, Li Fan began searching the Tianshuan mirror for information about the beast that formed Nine Mountains Prefecture. Given the passage of time, records were fragmented and unverifiable. Opinions varied, and no definitive answer could be found. Li Fan combed through all the records but found nothing credible. Just when he was reluctantly preparing to give up, a painting titled, "Dream Encounter with Ancient Beasts," caught Li Fan's attention. This painting was not created by anyone in modern times but was a casual sketch by a disciple of the ancient, Divine Brush sect. After the Divine Brush sect was annexed by the Pointillism sect, its artifacts were scattered far and wide. This particular painting was accidentally obtained by a wandering cultivator. However, during a catastrophic heavenly disaster, the wandering cultivator perished, and the contents of his storage ring were looted. Only the seemingly worthless items, too cumbersome to carry, were left behind, quietly lying in place. The abandoned storage ring, deemed useless, was discarded by the roadside like old trash. After being buried in dust for thousands of years, it was rediscovered by a passing cultivator. According to this cultivator, named Tang Bowen, he understood the past events through a lingering 1,000-year-old resentment within the storage ring. Of course, this claim might have been fabricated by Tang Bowen to inflate the value of Dream Encounter with Ancient Beasts. Regardless, the painting indeed dates back thousands of years. It depicts over 100 beasts in various forms, some of which Li Fan had encountered in the fallen immortal realm. What truly captivated Li Fan about the painting, beyond these obvious beasts, was the hidden presence of another creature. At the very edge of the painting, it appeared that these 100 beasts were all standing on the body of a colossal being. However, due to its immense size, it could not be fully depicted. Instead, the 100 beasts on its back served as a frame of reference. Vast and formless, its name is Heaven. This phrase was inscribed in a corner of the painting. This minimalist creative style naturally attracted much commentary from cultivators. An insightful observer revealed the truth with a single remark. "I know this. Isn't it that giant tortoise that transformed into the 9 Mountain Province after its death?" The tone was somewhat mocking but not unfounded. Indeed, the creature's name consists of the characters 4. King, Wang, and 8. Ba. It is named Tian Tian. It is called Heaven, the heavenly beast. A sharp light flashed in Li Fan's eyes. Read extra chapters on greater than Spirit Stone translation. The exact appearance of the heavenly beast, whether it truly resembles a tortoise, is now impossible to verify. However, with a specific name, it becomes much easier to search for related information. Though most of the records are fragmented, it can generally be confirmed that the heavenly beast was a totemic existence in the distant ancient era, seemingly tied closely to a certain form of faith. Li Fan mused, the heavenly beast likely belonged to the Xuantian sect. During the war in which the 10 great sects of the Immortal Tao annihilated the Xuantian sect, the heavenly beast fell and transformed into 9 mountains. Senior Sister Zhao once mentioned that the Xuantian sect usurped heavenly authority and could grant mortals marks, enabling them to wield supernatural powers that only cultivators possess. And if they could grant such powers, naturally, they could also revoke them. Perhaps on the battlefield of Tianling Prefecture, the reason those cultivators locked onto by green light lost their ability to fly and plummeted from the skies was due to this very mechanism. In my past life, the mysterious net, I remember, hardly exhibited such revocation abilities. To suppress rebellious cultivators, they often had to dispatch the black-robed heavenly sorcerers instead. The network was far more focused on monitoring and bestowing than on stripping away powers. After a moment's thought, Li Fan frowned to himself. The Tianquan Spirit Locking Formation and the Xuantian Spirit Sealing Formation might just be 2 facets of the Xuantian sect's divine power. The so-called bestowment and revocation are essentially wielding heavenly authority, acting in place of the heavens. With this thought in mind, Li Fan took out a blank encrypted jade slip. The Tao deviation stone in his mind hummed faintly as it activated. The complete formation diagram for the Tianquan Spirit Locking Formation, deeply etched in his memory from his past life, was imprinted onto the jade slip. However, Li Fan made a few deliberate omissions, concealing the fine details of the central core formation. It took him half a day to complete engraving the formation diagram. Holding the jade slip, Li Fan's expression fluctuated. While the Tianling Prefecture has achieved a great victory, and the 10,000 Immortal Alliance appears to have the upper hand, all of this perceived advantage is but an illusion. The longevity Immortal Heavenly Sovereigns of the 5 Elders Association have refrained from taking action solely because of the agreement made with the Dharma Transmission Immortal Ancestor in the past. In truth, the Immortal Ancestor has already. Suddenly, Li Fan froze mid-thought. Previously, he believed that the Immortal Ancestor had left the Xuanwang realm. If this became known, with the 5 Elders Association boasting the strength of 5 longevity Heavenly Sovereigns, the 10,000 Immortal Alliance would be nearly defenseless. If he were to leak the Spirit Locking Formation diagram to the 5 Elders Association, it might accelerate the collapse of the alliance, exposing his own fragile position. But soon, Li Fan realized a flaw in his assumptions. In his past life, it was only in the 41st year, when Senior Sister Zhao tested the waters, that they confirmed the Immortal Ancestor had indeed departed. However, no one knew exactly when the Immortal Ancestor had left. The only hint lay in the 24th year, when the 10,000 Immortal Alliance decided to universally implement the Tianquan Spirit Locking Formation, which might reveal some clues. Still, Li Fan recalled that in the initial stages of training talents in formation techniques, the Alliance showed no urgency. Perhaps this was because they were unaware of the Immortal Ancestor's departure, or perhaps the Ancestor had genuinely not yet left at that time. Should I add fuel to the fire and test the situation? For a moment, Li Fan hesitated. After pondering for a long while, he ultimately chose to set aside the idea for now. In this life, his main goal was still to achieve nascent soul. Only if the 10,000 Immortal Alliance triumphed in the Tianling Prefecture War and successfully relocated the 5 Elements' Great Cave Heaven would Li Fan have the opportunity to explore the mysterious void continuously birthing these cave heavens. If the Alliance were to fall, everything would crumble, and he would lose his freedom of action. Still, the 10,000 Immortal Alliance cannot be allowed to feel entirely unpressured. Otherwise, if the 5 Elders Association faces defeat after defeat, and the Alliance grows complacent, feeling no need to relocate the cave heavens, it would be problematic. After a long contemplation, Li Fan crushed the encrypted jade slip in his hand. He took out another blank slip and began engraving once more. This time, he omitted even more details, leaving only the outermost formation structures. Even a fragment speaks volumes. The Five Elders Association surely has its share of geniuses in formation techniques. With the portion of the formation I reveal, they may not fully dismantle the spirit-locking formation, but countering it should not be an issue. After completing his intricate work, Li Fan's eyes gleamed as he stored the encrypted jade slip in a separate storage ring. 3 days later, Li Fan met again with the Five Elders Association's spy. Taoist Zhou, what's the verdict? As soon as Li Fan appeared, the spy impatiently asked. We can obtain the diagrams, Li Fan replied bluntly. The Five Elders Association cultivator froze in shock before his face lit up with joy. However, Li Fan quickly doused his enthusiasm. But it's only the outer structure diagrams. And it's the initial version. The Schwantian spirit sealing formation has undergone countless iterations and advancements since then, it's likely unrecognizable now. It can only serve as a reference. Li Fan spoke indifferently. Hearing this, the spy's initial excitement dimmed, but he soon regained his composure. Acquiring even the original formation's outer structure was a major breakthrough. It was also a reasonable outcome within expectations. After all, the Schwantian spirit sealing formation was one of the 10,000 Immortal Alliance's most closely guarded secrets, ranking among their top confidential assets. The Five Elders Association had lost several deeply embedded spies without obtaining even a shred of information. If Li Fan had promised the complete formation without reservation, the spy would have suspected a trap, or even questioned whether Li Fan himself was the Dharma transmission immortal ancestor. No matter, even the original diagrams are excellent. The Five Elders Association cultivator looked at Li Fan with anticipation. What are your terms? Li Fan's tone turned grave. The value of these diagrams is beyond any contribution points or measurements. But our terms are simple. Li Fan's eyes gleamed, his expression unreadable. The Five Elders Association must cooperate with our actions at certain critical moments. The spy froze, frowning. What does that mean? Li Fan ignored the question and continued, with the power of contracts, I trust you won't renege on the deal. Rest assured, our requests won't be excessive. At key moments, all we ask is for your association to lend its support within one prefecture. The spy fell silent. Wait a moment. Turning his back, he closed his eyes as if consulting with higher-ups. After a long while, he turned back, drenched in sweat. We agree to this deal. How long will it take for you to acquire the formation diagram? The spy from the Five Elders Association impatiently asked, not even waiting for Li Fan to speak. Li Fan pondered for a moment before answering, at least 20 days. The other party's expression immediately turned anxious. Too slow. On the battlefield, things change in an instant. 20 days, who knows what might happen by then? Midway through the sentence, the spy abruptly stopped and directly stated, we cannot afford to wait that long. Li Fan narrowed his eyes, letting out a cold snort. It seems the Five Elders Association is truly in a rush. Even an initial version of the formation diagram isn't something easily stolen. It requires careful planning. You can't just snap your fingers and get it. Hearing this, the spy's expression darkened. However, at this point, Li Fan's tone shifted. There's a slow way to do it, and there's also a faster way. If you want the diagram quickly, it depends on your sincerity. The blatant price hike made the spy exclaim, what else do you want? Li Fan's face darkened slightly. The price we just discussed was for the formation diagram. Now we need to discuss the cost of expediting the process. Any issues? If you're unwilling to deal, then forget it. With that, he turned decisively and began to walk away. Wait, let's talk this through. The spy panicked, rushing forward to bring Li Fan back. Don't be so rash, fellow Taoist Zhou. I already said everything is negotiable. The spy forced a smile through gritted teeth. Li Fan sat back down and said indifferently, agreeing to trade with you already poses a significant risk for my organization. Naturally, the benefits must be sufficient. Using his finger as a pen, he scribbled a few small characters on the stone table and continued, forget about contribution points. Some of the Five Elders Associations specialties are very popular in our circles and can serve as bargaining chips. The spy leaned in to see items listed on the table: enlightenment pills, Samantabhadra true boat, carefree crystals, human Tao stardust, and truth-defying fruit. His eyelid twitched uncontrollably. Previously, when Li Fan had infiltrated the Five Elders Association by controlling Jia Shuyuan's puppet body, he not only gained some private time in Senior Sister Zhao's illusion realm but also developed a decent understanding of the region's general situation and culture. Enlightenment pills, and Samantabhadra true boat. Needed no further explanation. Human Tao stardust, a specialty of the humane Tao heavenly domain, corresponded to the stars formed by cultivators ascending to the heavens and merging into starlight. By absorbing stardust, one could clearly perceive the process of reshaping the world. In the humane Tao heavenly domain, the transformation of the heavens and earth followed a framework created by the human Tao heavenly sovereign, albeit on a lower tier than the mystical principles of the Xuanwang realm. Nevertheless, it was highly valuable for cultivators seeking enlightenment, regardless of their level. As for the truth-defying fruit, it was a unique item from the realm of reality. The fruit could be pre-programmed with specific information, which, once consumed, would warp the consumer's thoughts. They would believe even the most implausible notions as absolute truth. This ability to turn falsehood into reality made it incredibly potent. Even Tao integration cultivators below the longevity immortal realm couldn't resist its influence. Moving his gaze from the stone table, the spy looked at Li Fan, who sat silently with his eyes closed, and felt his mouth go dry. Fellow Taoist Zhou, please wait. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, he turned away. This time, it took even longer than before. His entire body trembled as though enduring some tremendous ordeal. By the time the sky darkened, he finally reached a decision. The spy, looking utterly drained and unsteady on his feet, took a deep breath before saying weakly, "Fine. But the quantities of each item must be negotiated further." Li Fan, who had been resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened them and smiled. Agreed. What followed was a long bargaining session. After much haggling, both sides reached an agreement. The spy gave Li Fan a deep, meaningful look. "Now, it's time to sign the contract." At that moment, something unexpected occurred. Radiant golden light erupted from the spy's body, engulfing him completely and coalescing into a golden contract scroll, which hovered silently before Li Fan. The spy himself dissolved into the light, vanishing entirely. Suppressing his discomfort, Li Fan picked up the golden scroll and examined it carefully. The text was written in faint dark gold characters. The terms of the agreement matched what had been negotiated, with no discrepancies. What caught Li Fan's attention was that one side of the contract was left blank for him to sign, while the other bore 5 enigmatic and ever-shifting symbols. Although he couldn't decipher their meaning, Li Fan instinctively understood that these symbols represented the 5 Elders Associations, 5 longevity immortal heavenly sovereigns. Recalling the brainwashing scholar's lecture in the 5 Elders Association's Valley, Li Fan had an epiphany. This contract seems to be related to the 5 Elders Associations, soul contracts. The principal parties are the longevity immortal sovereigns, though the content differs. As Li Fan reached out to sign, an indescribable sense of foreboding swept over him. "Confirm," he responded inwardly. The sensation persisted and intensified with each repetition. On the third confirmation, a golden light shot into the depths of Li Fan's soul, while the rest disappeared into the void. "The contract is sealed. No one bound by it may break its terms," Li Fan murmured with narrowed eyes. "Not even the longevity immortal heavenly sovereigns can defy it. The only power capable of subduing someone as inscrutable as Senior Sister Zhao must be a similarly formidable longevity immortal sovereign. Perhaps even stronger." With this, Li Fan's speculations about the 5 Elders Association's final, unknown longevity sovereign were finally validated. It was the binding power of this sovereign's contracts that maintained the organization's stability. Far away, Li Fan's main body meditated silently, monitoring his soul for any anomalies after his clone, Zhou Qingong, signed the contract. Nothing seemed amiss, yet deep down, he had a strong premonition. Should he violate the agreement, the repercussions would reverberate through his entire being, reaching even his main body. Up until now, Li Fan still hadn't figured out the exact consequences of violating the contract with the 5 Elders Association. However, he had no intention of testing it out personally. Every deal he had made with the 5 Elders Association had brought him immense profit. Why would he ever willingly break the agreement? On the contrary, he wished for more opportunities like these. The 5 Elders Association's spy was now reduced to nothing but bones. At the transaction site, only Li Fan remained. Casually destroying the stone table with engraved characters, Zhou Qingong leapt and returned to Kongyun City. On the way back, Li Fan reflected on some oddities during the negotiation process. Treasures like the truth-defying fruit and human Dao stardust, valuable even to cultivators in the Dao integration realm, were offered sparingly by the Five Elders Association. This was understandable to Li Fan. However, regarding the Samantabhadra true boat, the Five Elders Association was overly stingy, refusing to provide more even when offered compensation with even more precious resources. This puzzled Li Fan. After all, the Samantabhadra true boat was something his puppet body had casually encountered during its travels within the Five Elders Association. It was readily available not too long ago. How had it suddenly become so valuable? What had changed? Li Fan couldn't make sense of it until Zhou Qingong returned to the administration hall and happened to glance at the map of the Kongyun Sea and its surrounding regions on the wall. Suddenly, inspiration struck. He stared intently at the natural boundaries marked on the map, the place labeled as the White Mist Barrier, and seemed to have an epiphany. The so-called law of supply and demand, he murmured. Although the Samantabhadra true boat's actual value isn't high, if the Five Elders Association is now requisitioning them on a massive scale and experiencing severe shortages, this would explain everything. Li Fan's thoughts raced. The Five Elders Association is planning a campaign within the White Mist. Are they using the White Mist Barrier to launch an attack into the 10,000 Immortal Alliance, or are they venturing deeper into the White Mist itself? Even Li Fan himself was startled by this sudden hypothesis. For countless years, cultivators had avoided the White Mist because of its life-draining properties. Who would have thought of utilizing the White Mist barriers as natural pathways? Although the 10,000 Immortal Alliance had long known that Samantabhadra True Leaf could somewhat mitigate the effects of the life-draining mist, this knowledge hadn't been widely implemented. This oversight was a major blind spot in the 10,000 Immortal Alliance's thinking. What seemed like an impenetrable and safe White Mist barrier could, in the next instant, erupt with countless enemy cultivators pouring forth. This was an utterly terrifying prospect. I hope I'm just overthinking things. With the 10,000 Immortal Alliance's many brilliant minds, they must have already prepared for such a possibility. Right. In the days that followed, Zhou Qingong deliberately kept himself busy. Requests for meetings that he would have usually rejected outright were now all accepted. Whenever he had free time, he patrolled the islands across the Kongyun Sea. In just 3 to 4 days, he had interacted with hundreds of individuals from various backgrounds and ranks. This strategy made it nearly impossible for the Five Elders Association to trace his sources of intelligence or uncover traces of the so-called heaven-suppressing society. Even if the Five Elders Association had the means to interrogate every person he met through soul-searching techniques, they wouldn't find anything. They would never guess that all of the 10,000 Immortal Alliance's top secrets originated from Li Fan himself. On the 5th day, Li Fan, carrying a fragmented formation diagram, ventured alone to the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion on Yulan Island. In a hidden chamber deep within, he met the contact for this transaction. The person was dressed in black, their face concealed, but Li Fan could tell they weren't the same individual as the last contact. Excellent. Fellow Taoist Zhou is trustworthy, and we won't disappoint you either, the black-clad cultivator praised upon seeing Li Fan arrive as promised. Li Fan asked about the previous Five Elders Association spy. The black-clad cultivator replied solemnly, to complete the mission, he chose self-sacrifice. It is our fate and our honor. It was clear that the person Li Fan had witnessed dissolving in golden light had truly perished. They had given their life to secure a contract bearing the marks of 5 heavenly sovereigns. Curiously, there had been no celestial anomaly marking the spy's death, a mystery Li Fan couldn't unravel. Nodding silently, Li Fan handed over a storage ring containing encrypted jade slips. The black-clad cultivator accepted it with care and said, "Please wait here for a moment, fellow Taoist Zhou." With that, he left the chamber with the ring, destination unknown. Li Fan closed his eyes and waited patiently. He wasn't concerned about the safety of this puppet body. First, the golden contract prohibited either side from harming the other. Second, Zhou Qingong presented himself as a member of the massive covert organization, Heaven-Suppressing Society, hidden deep within the 10,000 Immortal Alliance. Moreover, he was the only link between the Heaven-Suppressing Society and the Five Elders Association. Unless the Five Elders Association was prepared to sever ties with the Heaven-Suppressing Society entirely, they wouldn't dare harm him. especially when their war with the 10,000 Immortal Alliance left no room for creating additional enemies. Still, Li Fan remained vigilant, ready to abandon this puppet body if needed. The Five Elders Association's efficiency was remarkable. In less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the black-clad cultivator returned to the chamber. Although he tried to mask his emotions, the faint excitement in his demeanor was evident. "Your methods are truly extraordinary. I am impressed. This is what we promised. Please check it." The black-clad cultivator handed over a white stone. "This is," Li Fan's eyes flashed. Fortunately, after searching through the memories stored in the Tao Deviation Stone, he instantly knew what this white stone was. It was the Primordial Void Stone Mother, a rare, natural storage material. Compared to ordinary storage rings, it offered significantly larger space. It could also be refined and stored within a cultivator's body. An essential material for crafting spatial artifacts, it was both priceless and scarcely available. This item wasn't on Li Fan's list of requested goods. It was clearly provided as a dedicated storage vessel. Li Fan nodded slightly, opened his mouth, and swallowed the stone directly. He didn't immediately refine it but first inspected its contents. The Five Elders Association had fulfilled their side of the agreement without any shortages: 10,000 enlightenment pills, 300 Samantabhadra true boat, 3 fragments of human Tao stardust, all matched the contract. Li Fan's attention focused on a 5-colored glowing statue floating amidst the items. The statue's design was remarkably peculiar. It had 5 faces and 10 hands, yet shared a single body. Each face displayed a distinct expression. One lowered its eyes with compassion, seemingly sorrowful for the world's plight. Another bore a stern countenance, glaring with righteous anger. One face was slightly furrowed, appearing fragile and pitiful. Yet upon closer inspection, hints of alluring charm and coquettish seduction emerged. This last face bore a striking resemblance to Senior Sister Zhao. Li Fan's heart warmed, and a rush of emotions blossomed in his mind, his thoughts veering toward indulgent fantasies. For a fleeting moment, he could even hear the gentle whispers of Senior Sister Zhao in his ears. Something's wrong. Alarmed, Li Fan snapped back to reality, breaking free from the illusion, and cold sweat drenched his back. Looking again, the vivid expressions vanished. What remained were 5 indistinct and featureless faces on the 10-handed statue. "What is this?" Li Fan feigned composure as he retrieved the statue. The black-robed cultivator, upon seeing the multicolored statue in Li Fan's hands, lit up with fervent enthusiasm and explained. "This is a manifestation of Heavenly Sovereign statue, and it is one of the highest grade types. It embodies the collective will of the 5 Heavenly Sovereigns. While it cannot grant you direct audience with them, it does allow communication with the 5 Elders Pavilion. Mundane matters are typically beneath the attention of the Heavenly Sovereigns and are managed by the 5 Elders Pavilion. When your actions require the support of the 5 Elders Association, you may use the Heavenly Sovereign statue to relay your message to the pavilion. But it can only be used once. Afterward, the statue will naturally disappear." Li Fan nodded slowly as he listened to the explanation. After scrutinizing the 10-handed statue one last time, he stored it in the Primordial Void Stone Mother. With the transaction complete, Li Fan was preparing to leave. "Wait, fellow Taoist," the black-robed cultivator suddenly called out, stopping him. "What is it?" Li Fan narrowed his eyes, his expression turning wary. The black-robed cultivator waved his hands hastily. "Haha, don't misunderstand, my friend. I merely have a small favor to ask. Of course, the reward will be more than sufficient." "What is it?" Li Fan's expression softened slightly, his tone remaining indifferent. The black-robed cultivator handed over a slip of paper. Li Fan accepted it and glanced at the contents, which detailed a peculiar request. About a year ago, the 10,000 Immortal Alliance discovered an ancient slumbering cultivator from the ruins of the ancient Purple Heaven sect. The 5 Elders Association hoped to enlist the Heaven-Suppressing Society to investigate the cultivator's true identity and current whereabouts. The name, Purple Heaven Sect, caught Li Fan's attention, stirring something within him. "This is a small favor." Li Fan let out a cold snort, his finger igniting a flame that instantly reduced the slip of paper to ashes. The black-robed cultivator chuckled awkwardly. "We'll do what we can. We make no guarantees. This task is as challenging as deciphering formation diagrams." Li Fan turned and left, leaving behind a single echoing remark in the chamber. The black-robed cultivator's eyes narrowed thoughtfully at those words. On his return journey, Li Fan remained exceptionally vigilant. After all, he now carried a treasure of great value and could not afford to be careless. Fortunately, the 10,000 Immortal Alliance maintained a relatively secure environment. No one attempted to rob or kill him for his possession. Zhou Qingong smoothly returned to the Kongyuan Immortal City. Only once he was completely safe did Li Fan sense the fulfillment of the contract. The agreement, which prohibited both parties from harming each other, was now void. Simultaneously, he felt a strange sense of loss, as though something within him had vanished into thin air. Despite much contemplation, Li Fan could not discern the nature of the contract's power and eventually gave up. He did not immediately examine the results of the trade stored in the primordial void stone mother. Instead, he reflected on the Five Elders Association's request. When he first heard terms like Purple Heaven Sect and Slumbering Cultivator, the name Zhang Qinmo instinctively flashed through his mind. In fact, Li Fan had long been aware of the 10,000 Immortal Alliance's practice of excavating ancient sect ruins to search for slumbering cultivators. Around the 11th year, he had commissioned Zhao Shuyuan to locate the Little Medicine King Cauldron, but no updates were ever provided. Upon inquiry, Zhao Shuyuan revealed a scene he had observed and shared his speculations. Li Fan had instructed him to investigate the identity of this ancient cultivator. Unfortunately, 2 years had passed without any results. This alone illustrated the extraordinary difficulty of the matter. Zhao Shuyuan, with a cultivation level potentially nearing Dao integration, had clones spread across the 10,000 Immortal Alliance and access to a wealth of intelligence. Yet even he could do nothing regarding this matter. Perhaps it may not necessarily be Senior Brother Zhang. Senior Brother Zhang cultivates the Purple Core Nirvana technique, constantly reincarnating. By now, he should have reincarnated as that martial fanatic child. Such a supreme technique shouldn't have such a glaring flaw. If his original body still exists while he reincarnates, it would be tantamount to exposing his lifeline to danger. After analyzing the situation, Li Fan dismissed his previous speculation. In that case, besides Senior Brother Zhang, who else from the Purple Heaven sect could have survived until now? Thinking it over, Li Fan couldn't come to a clear conclusion. One must know that in ancient times, the Purple Heaven sect was merely a second-rate sect. The sect lacked a longevity immortal realm powerhouse, and even Dao integration cultivators were only a handful. Based on the memories of Li Chen, whom he had possessed at the time, the elders of the sect didn't seem like people capable of traversing eons and surviving to the present. Currently, I have discarded my identity as a Heavenly Mechanism sect cultivator, and don't carry any items with me, so I can't contact Zhao Shuyuan for now. I'll wait until after the great battle to deal with it. After pondering for a moment, Li Fan temporarily set the matter aside. He retrieved a piece of human Dao stardust from the Mother Stone and placed it before him. After swallowing a Dao enlightenment pill, he began to examine it. The seemingly ordinary black stone emitted a silver starlight. When touched with spiritual sense, countless images instantly appeared in his mind. It was the story of a female cultivator, who, driven by great determination, spent 500 years cultivating to ultimately win back the affections of her beloved. It was a mundane tale of unrequited love, common in the world. However, unlike many similar stories, this female cultivator paid the price of ascending into a star for her single-minded love. As a result, the male cultivator she pined for finally fell in love with her. For the remainder of his life, he gazed at the starry sky daily, shedding tears of regret and sorrow. Li Fan remained expressionless and decisively swapped it for another piece of human Dao stardust. This time, the story contained within the stardust was somewhat more normal. It was about a cultivator who, after witnessing his close kin suffer due to lack of aptitude, unable to expel the miasma within their bodies and doomed to an early death, resolved to make cultivation accessible to all. Unfortunately, this ambition was too grand to realize. So, he narrowed his goal from all of humanity to his family. When this cultivator ascended to the heavens, his family flourished, producing countless geniuses. Within a century, they rose to become a dominant power in the region. Reversing aptitude, is it? A glimmer of light flashed in Li Fan's eyes as spiritual power gathered in his palm. He suddenly exerted force, crushing the black stone into powder. The silver starlight was entirely absorbed by him. In an instant, countless indescribable insights flooded his mind. The principles of the heavens intertwined into a vast web, forming the order that governs the world. One thread in particular stood out vividly in Li Fan's vision. It seemed within reach, with even its intricate, profound patterns clearly visible. In an instant, this thin thread filled his entire view. The thin thread became as massive as a pillar supporting the heavens. The magnificent aura emanating from it intoxicated Li Fan, unraveling many previously incomprehensible mysteries in a flash of understanding. He also noticed countless fine threads connecting his body to the towering pillar. As he focused on these indistinct, ethereal threads, an epiphany dawned upon him. Though he now appeared to be a puppet manipulated by the pillar, via these threads, someday, if his strength were sufficient, he might reverse the control, using the threads to manipulate the pillar instead. So this is what it means to defy the laws of heaven. An overwhelming sense of joy surged within him, causing even Li Fan, deep in seclusion within the Kongyan Sea Trench, to tremble with excitement. After reincarnating for 100 lifetimes, the path to eternal life was now within reach. Though knowing and achieving were worlds apart, the harvest of this moment filled Li Fan with immense satisfaction. Immersed in his thoughts, he lost track of time. When the human Tao stardust was completely consumed, and he emerged from his enlightenment, he felt an insatiable yearning. In a daze, he spent half a day reminiscing before regaining clarity. When he instinctively checked the time, Li Fan was astonished to discover that what felt like a brief moment to him had been nearly a year in the outside world. No wonder longevity immortal realm powerhouses disdain worldly affairs. Now I understand what cultivation transcends the flow of time truly means. And this was just a partial glimpse of the laws of heaven through the human Tao stardust. If one were to fully comprehend the laws of heaven, they might lose decades in a single retreat. Li Fan couldn't help but sigh inwardly. After savoring the experience for a while, he began reviewing the events that had transpired during his year-long retreat. The communication talisman from Zhou Qingong was nearly bursting with messages from He Zhenghao and others. Li Fan didn't respond immediately but instead chose to prioritize the important ones. The war in Tianling Prefecture hadn't yet concluded but had significantly de-escalated. Thus, cultivators began receiving news from the battlefield. The Xuantian spirit-locking formation diagram submitted by Li Fan had an immediate effect. Just 10 days after the trade was finalized, during a medium-scale skirmish, the 10,000 Immortal Alliance attempted to replicate their earlier tactics, using the Tianshuan spirit-locking formation, to crush and slaughter the Five Elders Association's forces. However, they hadn't expected the other side to be fully prepared. Every cultivator was surrounded by a red protective glow. When green and red lights merged, nothing unusual occurred. While the 10,000 Immortal Alliance was caught off guard, a brutal close-quarters battle ensued. Read extra chapters on greater than Spirit Stone Translation Chapter 572. The events and results of this battle, though deliberately downplayed by the 10,000 Immortal Alliance, can still be discerned through the series of actions taken afterward. Newly issued offensive orders were hastily rescinded, directives were sent to all states, commanding them to fortify their defenses against infiltration by Five Elders Association cultivators. States were strictly prohibited from initiating conflict, with current missions focused primarily on defense. Deployment orders to the front lines also became increasingly frequent. Changing orders on a whim, what a slapdash operation. Almost overnight, the strategy underwent a complete 180-degree turn, prompting widespread complaints among the Alliance cultivators. However, out of fear of the 10,000 Immortal Alliance's overwhelming authority, no one dared voice their grievances openly. Such frustrations were only vented in private gatherings. The progress of war was not subject to the will of cultivators. What once seemed an overwhelming advantage quickly transformed into a stalemate between the two sides. As the external war faltered, internal chaos also erupted. At the 10,000 Immortal Alliance headquarters, it was rumored that many high-ranking cultivators were dismissed and placed under investigation. Even long-serving, influential Tao integration cultivators were not spared. However, the reasons for their interrogations remained unknown. Even when these cultivators were released, visibly weakened and clearly tortured, they remained tight-lipped, refusing to discuss the matter regardless of the questions posed. This only served to spread suspicion and panic, as no one wanted to be the next person dragged off for mysterious interrogations. Li Fan, however, knew the truth. The 10,000 Immortal Alliance was searching for a mole who didn't exist. No matter how hard they tried, they would never suspect that the one responsible for leaking the Tianquan spirit locking formation was a minor golden core cultivator in a remote area on the Alliance's outskirts, none other than Li Fan himself. Thus, this investigation was destined to lead nowhere. In the end, it would likely conclude with a few unfortunate scapegoats tortured into confessing crimes they never committed, just to wrap things up. And on Li Fan's growing list of the injured, there would once again be the names of innocents. After roughly understanding the course of the past year's events, Li Fan turned his attention to the many messages that He Zhenghao had sent to Zhou Qingong. Most of them were inquiries and reminders about when he would emerge from seclusion. At the start, the messages were frequent, but as time passed, they gradually dwindled, perhaps due to resignation or some other reason. The Lord Envoy is deeply secluded, and now you're doing the same. I can't even reach anyone. Now look, everyone's following the trend. One by one, they've destroyed their communication talismans and claimed to have gone into seclusion. At this rate, we won't even be able to gather 10 administrative staff in Kongyuan City's administration hall. How am I supposed to explain this to the Lord Envoy when he returns? He Zhenghao lamented bitterly, but Li Fan merely sneered. Do you even acknowledge me as the Lord's secret envoy anymore? Unconcerned with the ramblings of someone soon to die, Li Fan swiftly erased the messages in his communication talisman and left his secluded chamber, quietly appearing in the main hall of the administration hall. In the hall, a conversation was underway. Brother Gao, the position of Pill Hall Quality Inspector has recently opened up. Someone offered me 50,000 contribution points for it. What do you think? I think it's too low, at least 80,000. After all, just recently, the position of drill sergeant in the martial arts hall went for a full 130,000 contributions. This time, the discussion abruptly stopped when they noticed another person in the room. Awkwardly, He Zhenghao turned to look at Zhou Qingong. His face flushed with embarrassment. Gao Yuan, however, narrowed his eyes slightly, showing no signs of panic at being caught in the act of trading positions for personal gain. Instead, he smiled warmly and greeted Zhou Qingong, naturally. Taoist Zhou, long time no see. Perfect timing, you can help us decide. He then candidly recounted their scheme of selling vacant positions in Kongyuan City, eagerly awaiting Zhou Qingong's opinion. The move not only dissolved the initial awkwardness but also subtly drew Zhou Qingong into their circle. Even Li Fan, who had spent centuries navigating the bureaucratic intricacies of the immortal world, couldn't help but silently commend the tactic. Smiling faintly, he looked at the two but didn't act like a righteous whistleblower intent on exposing them. Instead, after a moment of mock deliberation, he slammed the table. 80,000 contribution points. Too low. One price, 160,000 contribution points. Take it or leave it. The sudden doubling of the price left He Zhenghao dumbfounded. After a brief pause, he recovered and chuckled wryly, trying to reason. Fellow Taoist Zhou, you might not be aware of the current market conditions after your seclusion. The position of Pill Hall Quality Inspector can only fetch, at most, 80,000. After all, we're not the only ones in Kongyuan City selling positions. Buyers come to us because it's cheaper here and can serve as a stepping stone. But if we double the price like this? He Zhenghao shook his head. Why would anyone pay so much when they could go to Luoyang Prefecture or some other more prosperous region? Gao Yuan also nodded in agreement. Li Fan sneered at the two, his eyes brimming with disdain. I'm out of touch, or are you two the ones who don't understand the current situation? The change in Zhou Qingong's demeanor was stark. Completely unlike his usual measured and steady self. Gao Yuan and He Zhenghao exchanged glances, their expressions filled with doubt. Something didn't add up. Cautiously, He Zhenghao leaned forward and asked, Fellow Taoist Zhou, what do you mean? Ignoring him, Zhou Qingong directed his gaze coldly at Gao Yuan, who briefly flashed a look of anger before suppressing it and putting on a polite smile. Finally, Li Fan spoke, his tone deliberate. The war in Tianling Prefecture is nearing its end, and hostilities are about to cease. Your little scheme of buying and selling official positions under the cover of wartime chaos is almost over. This revelation left Gao Yuan and He Zhenghao truly stunned. Their shock was no longer feigned. In the brief silence that followed, disbelief flashed in their eyes. But fellow Taoist Zhou, He Zhenghao quickly asked. There's been no news of this. How could you know? Gao Yuan chimed in, indeed, such matters concern the entire alliance, and fellow Taoist Zhou mustn't speak lightly. Li Fan's cold gaze swept over them. How do I know? He sneered. Naturally, Lord Secret Envoy himself informed me. Lord Secret Envoy. Lord Secret Envoy. Zhou Qingong's voice wasn't loud, but when it reached He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan's ears, it was like a thunderclap. He Zhenghao was stunned for a moment, his face immediately turning pale. Lord Secret Envoy has emerged from seclusion. How come I wasn't informed? Gao Yuan also appeared utterly shocked, his expression full of disbelief. However, what Zhou Qingong said next offered them a sliver of relief. The Secret Envoy has not yet emerged, Zhou Qingong said lightly. But if anyone thinks their petty schemes can escape the attention of the Secret Envoy in seclusion, that would be laughable. His words were filled with implication as he cast a sharp gaze at the two men. He Zhenghao, feeling guilty, laughed awkwardly. We all know the Secret Envoy possesses heaven-penetrating abilities, none of us would dare to deceive him. Gao Yuan, previously calm and confident, now broke into a cold sweat. His mind raced for a countermeasure as he hastily echoed He Zhenghao's words. Li Fan, seeing their feigned ignorance, sneered inwardly. He raised his voice and sternly rebuked. You two, embezzling the recruitment funds behind the Secret Envoy's back, behaving recklessly while he's away, treating the laws of the Immortal Alliance as if they're nothing, selling official positions for massive profits. Do you really think such acts can escape the all-seeing eyes of the Secret Envoy? How could you be so foolish? He Zhenghao, struck as if by lightning, trembled uncontrollably. Gao Yuan's face turned ashen, his mouth opening and closing without forming a single word. HMPH. Don't be deceived by the fact that the Secret Envoy outwardly appears to be only at the Golden Core stage. You both should know his true power is terrifying. While he might not claim to know all things without leaving his chambers, do you really believe the filth within this tiny Kongyunsi can elude his discerning gaze? Li Fan declared with pride. Since the time, He Zhenghao, when you privately pocketed unclaimed recruitment funds, the Secret Envoy has been watching you. Hearing this, He Zhenghao's legs gave out, and he collapsed to the ground. He Zhenghao tried to defend himself, but his voice was bitter, unable to muster an excuse. Zhou Qingong sighed lightly. However, the Secret Envoy doesn't care about such minor contributions. After all, you were the first to follow him upon his awakening. He chose to turn a blind eye, considering it a reward for your hard work. But the things you've done over the past 2 years have deeply disappointed him. Zhou Qingong's tone turned cold. Selling official titles, is it wrong? Many in the 10,000 Immortal Alliance do the same. The Secret Envoy is not ignorant of human nature and wouldn't oppose it outright. If you had openly applied to the Secret Envoy to profit from such actions, he might have even lent you a hand. But your grave mistake was acting on your own in everything. The wealth you've amassed from selling positions likely exceeds 1 million contribution points. Did you ever report even once to the Secret Envoy? These acts violate the laws of the Immortal Alliance. If they were exposed one day, the higher-ups would surely hold the Secret Envoy, as Kongyun City's highest-ranking official, accountable. Your greed is bad enough, but implicating the Secret Envoy as a scapegoat. Your intentions are truly despicable. Zhou Qingong roared. He Zhenghao, still sitting on the ground, felt aggrieved. He wanted to argue, saying that the Secret Envoy himself had warned them not to disturb him without urgent matters. How could he possibly report illegal actions like embezzlement? Was he supposed to court death? But no matter how valid his reasoning, it was useless to say it now. Looking back on his actions over the past 2 years, He Zhenghao felt as though he had been dreaming. The contribution points he had worked so hard to earn and cherished deeply now appeared as mere numbers in his eyes, devoid of real value. Even spending hundreds of thousands of points in an instant no longer fazed him. The vast sums under his control had unknowingly changed his mindset. Originally, he had sworn to follow the Secret Envoy, rumored to be a longevity immortal heavenly sovereign who had fallen in cultivation, and to achieve great things under his leadership. He had hoped to return triumphantly to Tianyu Prefecture and reconcile with Heng Ruoshui. But as time passed, he became lost in the flattery of others and the seemingly endless stream of contribution points. He forgot his lofty ambitions and focused solely on gaining more through unscrupulous means to indulge himself. Why must it be Heng Ruoshui? He once thought, with enough contribution points, what kind of female cultivator could I not have? Now, thinking back, he found it laughable. At the time, though, he had been hopelessly ensnared in greed. Scenes from the past flashed through his mind. He Zhenghao, drenched in sweat, felt as though he had just been pulled from water. How did I become like this? He Zhenghao felt nothing but regret and bewilderment. Will the secret envoy show me any mercy? He shivered, imagining his demise at the hands of Li Fan. Yet, a glimmer of hope remained in his heart. The logic was simple. If the secret envoy had already decided to punish him, why bother sending Zhou Qingyang to say so much? His patient persuasion and his earlier mention of doubling the 160,000 contribution points suggested there might still be room for negotiation. Thinking of this, He Zhenghao raised his head to look at Zhou Qingyang. Li Fan, noticing He Zhenghao's long silence and the despair in his eyes, saw him suddenly look up. Smiling faintly, Li Fan spoke again. Although your crimes are severe, you were among the first to follow the Lord's secret envoy. Therefore, the secret envoy has decided to give you one last chance to redeem yourselves. These words ignited a flicker of hope in both He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan's eyes. Please guide us. Gao Yuan quickly bowed and asked. As I mentioned earlier, the war in Tianling Prefecture is nearing its end. The secret envoy's instructions are simple. Li Fan paused before continuing resolutely. Seize this final opportunity, take as much as you can. His unwavering tone echoed throughout the hall. Hearing this, the two men exchanged bewildered glances, doubt creeping onto their faces as they turned to Zhou Qingyang. Did the Lord truly say that? He Zhenghao asked, somewhat hesitantly. Gao Yuan also seemed skeptical. Everyone knows that the Lord Envoy's mastery of divination techniques is extraordinary. If he wanted to amass wealth, there are countless methods at his disposal. Why would he stoop to such actions? It's beneath his status. Zhou Qingyang snorted at their reactions. The Lord Envoy's ambitions are not something the likes of you two could fathom. But fine, to put your doubts at ease, I'll reveal a little more of the inside story. Lowering his voice, Zhou Qingyang whispered, the Lord Envoy not only foresaw that the war in Tianling Prefecture is about to end, but he also predicted that after the war, to restore vitality and expedite recovery, the 10,000 Immortal Alliance will issue a decree. What decree? He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan perked up, eagerly listening. Zhou Qingyang slowly continued, every cultivator in the 10,000 Immortal Alliance will be allowed to purchase techniques from the Tianshuan mirror at a discount. Although divination involving artifacts like the Tianshuan mirror may result in minor discrepancies, according to the Lord Envoy, this outcome is highly likely. Discounted techniques. The two gasped audibly upon hearing this. After reflecting, however, they realized it wasn't without precedent. The last time such an event occurred was centuries ago, and only a few elder cultivators had ever mentioned it. For cultivators, the contribution points required to purchase techniques are one of the largest expenditures in their careers. Techniques often cost tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of contribution points, a figure insignificant to someone like He Zhenghao, but for most cultivators it's a fortune accumulated at great personal cost. If the 10,000 Immortal Alliance truly reopens discounted purchases of techniques, even at a 20% discount, it would save an enormous amount of contribution points during this period. It's easy to imagine how frenzied the cultivators would become. Borrowing or selling off assets to gather enough points to buy techniques would be inevitable. After considering this, He Zhenghao's eyes lit up. He faintly sensed a tremendous opportunity, though his exact plan to capitalize on it remained unclear. Scratching his head, he grew increasingly restless and urged, fellow Taoist Zhou, stop teasing us. Tell us the details. Zhou Qingyang smirked. It's simple. First, spread rumors that the war is ending and everything is returning to normal. Opportunities like this don't come twice. If anyone still wants to use contribution points to secure a position or rank, now is the time. Such chances won't come again. Of course, slightly increasing prices is entirely reasonable, isn't it? Second, announce the relaunch of the fundraising campaign, but make it grander this time. This time, set the term to 5 years with a promised 200% return. Moreover, allow contribution points to be invested without an upper limit. As the person who had been managing the fundraising campaigns, He Zhenghao couldn't help but twitch at these words. A 200% return in 5 years was entirely achievable in his mind, especially with the Lord Envoy's abilities. Considering the prior fundraising successes and the Lord Envoy's high-ranking position as a secret envoy of Kanyan City, this unrestricted fundraising campaign would undoubtedly attract unimaginable contributions. Particularly those cultivators who had missed out on the previous opportunities due to various reasons, they would scramble to invest at the first hint of this news. After all, 5 years isn't long. Many cultivators could easily retreat into closed-door cultivation, and by the time they emerged, their wealth would have tripled. Opportunities like this are rarer than a lantern in the dark. Moreover, with Li Fan as the highest administrator of the Kanyan Sea region, there was no risk of him fleeing with the contributions. But this, Gao Yuan noticed the ruthlessness in this plan, his gaze flickering with unease. Indeed, both methods aim to empty the cultivators' pockets in the shortest time possible, Zhou Qingong said smugly. Once they've handed over all their hard-earned savings, they'll hear about the alliance's discounted technique policy. They'll recognize it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, yet have no contribution points left to act. What's that? Want to withdraw your investment? Sure, but the penalty fees must be paid, right? Even if they're broke, we'll accept collateral, artifacts, rare materials, anything will do. And if they're desperate to buy discounted techniques, we could even lend them points. With interest, of course. A modest 20% per year, how reasonable. Zhou Qingong grinned wickedly as he elaborated, leaving He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan drenched in cold sweat. When Zhou Qingong finally finished his lengthy explanation, Gao Yuan couldn't help but ask, "The Lord Envoy's plan is brilliant, but I have one question. Please enlighten me, Daoist Zhou." Zhou Qingong tilted his head, silently pondering before replying, "We've worked together for years, Brother Gao. Speak freely. In my understanding of the Lord Envoy's character, he doesn't seem overly concerned with wealth. Why the sudden shift to such large-scale operations?" He Zhenghao agreed. Indeed, could it be that the Lord Envoy has deeper motives? I, too, believe he wouldn't go to such lengths merely for contribution points. Zhou Qingong remained silent for a long time, seemingly deep in thought. Seeing this, He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan felt their suspicions confirmed, their anticipation growing. After a while, Zhou Qingong finally made a decision. Using divine sense to transmit his voice, he said, "The Lord Envoy did not explicitly state this to me, it's merely my own speculation. Take it as an amusing guess, and do not treat it seriously." The two quickly nodded, promising discretion. It's highly likely that immortal monarchs Hongxi and Xian are returning to the Kanyan Sea. He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan were stunned, clarity dawning on them instantly. Not just that, the nascent soul cultivators previously dispatched from the Tianji Hall and Formation Hall of the 10,000 Immortal Island are likely returning soon. The Lord Envoy, after all, was appointed from above and has shallow roots here. Furthermore, his own cultivation is only at the golden core stage. Facing those seasoned nascent soul cultivators, he might find it hard to maintain his authority. Thus, the Lord Envoy plans to use this opportunity to consolidate his influence. If my guess is correct, when they return, he'll likely forgive the cultivators' debts to win their loyalty. And if my guess is wrong, the Lord Envoy will still profit immensely, suffering no loss either way. Zhou Qingong explained his reasoning methodically. Upon hearing this, Gao Yuan couldn't help but slap the table in admiration, exclaiming, "If this plan succeeds, nearly all the cultivators of the Kanyan Sea will owe a debt of gratitude to the esteemed Lord Envoy." Even if the two soul transformation immortal monarchs, Hongxi and Xian, return, they will have to carefully consider the consequences of opposing the Lord Envoy. Our Lord's foresight is truly unparalleled, strategizing not just one step ahead, but 100 steps. It's beyond the comprehension of ordinary minds. The seemingly simple wealth accumulation plan turned out to have so many intricate layers that He Zhenghao couldn't help but marvel at its brilliance. Both men were deeply impressed. However, they failed to notice a critical flaw in the seemingly flawless plan. The key issue was whether Li Fan could genuinely achieve the promised 200% returns within 5 years, after absorbing an astronomical amount of contributions. Perhaps it was because of Li Fan's prior demonstrations of incredible, seemingly impossible abilities, which had subtly brainwashed them. Or perhaps they had filled in the gaps of their imagination, believing Li Fan to be a fallen longevity immortal heavenly sovereign. Their trust in his abilities had reached a point where they no longer doubted him. Ultimately, they harbored no skepticism about Li Fan's ability to achieve the goals of this fundraising plan. After all, what's a mere threefold return in 5 years? How could such a thing stump the revered Lord's secret envoy? But in reality, even if Li Fan had reincarnated countless times in the Kangyun Sea, possessing unparalleled foresight, this time, it was truly beyond his capabilities. It wasn't a question of his ability but a practical limitation. Once an asset base grows to a certain scale, doubling it becomes exponentially harder. To put it bluntly, Li Fan was merely a speculator, profiting from buying low and selling high. He was not a creator of wealth. Unlike the 10,000 Immortals Alliance, he couldn't generate contribution points infinitely and without restriction. While he might manage to double a few million contribution points through skillful maneuvering, if the amount reached several billion or more. Unless another unprecedented war broke out between the 10,000 Immortals Alliance and the Five Elders Association, one he could anticipate in advance, it would be impossible. But it didn't matter that he couldn't deliver. After all, from the beginning, he had never intended to fulfill the promised returns. That's why the fundraising plan was set to be closed for 5 years. By the time 5 years passed, the Crimson Flame would engulf the Kangyun Sea, reducing it to a wasteland. With everyone dead, there would be no need to repay the debts. Instead of letting the 10,000 Immortals Alliance reclaim the contribution points, it was better to let Li Fan make use of them. Thus, Li Fan carried no psychological burden. As for the return of Lan Kang, Hao Zhan, and a group of nascent soul cultivators, while true, it was merely rhetoric to deceive He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan. Whether they returned or not, Li Fan genuinely didn't care. If they dared return to the Kangyun Sea, they would not escape the fate of death. However, Li Fan did hope that some of the formation masters he was more familiar with, such as Zhang Ziliang, could survive a little longer in this world. These thoughts flashed through his mind. At this moment, Zhou Qingong turned to He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan and said, "You two have already disappointed the Lord Envoy once. Don't waste this final chance to redeem yourselves. You must ensure that the Lord Envoy's plan is executed flawlessly." Both men nodded in agreement. They were fully aware that if the two soul transformation immortal monarchs returned and Li Fan lost power, their fate, as members of Li Fan's inner circle, would be dire. Setting aside loyalty, even for their own survival, they had to give it their all this time. However, Gao Yuan, being more cautious, hesitated for a moment. Before leaving, he cautiously asked Zhou Qingong, "Fellow Taoist Zhou, do you have the Lord Envoy's token? It's not that we distrust you, but the stakes are simply too high." Zhou Qingong chuckled, about to reply, when two peculiar fluctuations suddenly emanated from the storage rings of He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan. Both men's faces changed as they recalled something. They quickly retrieved the source of the anomaly, too. Divine Spirit Jade Slip, that Li Fan had entrusted to them before entering seclusion. The two jade slips merged in midair, forming a faint humanoid figure. Li Fan's voice echoed, "What you've said is not unreasonable. This matter is indeed significant enough to warrant my personal involvement." Seeing Li Fan suddenly appear, He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan panicked, immediately falling to their knees and exclaiming, "Greetings, Lord Secret Envoy." Their hearts raced with fear. Li Fan's words implied that their entire conversation with Zhou Qingong had been observed by the Lord Envoy from beginning to end. In fact, it seemed every move they made since Li Fan had entered seclusion was under his control. Terrified, the two prostrated themselves, heads touching the ground, not daring to move until Li Fan gave them permission. "He Zhenghao, present," He Zhenghao quickly responded. "Select some representatives from the cultivators who participated in the previous fundraising plan. Arrange a meeting in 10 days so I can personally explain the details of the 5-year plan and reassure everyone." Li Fan's voice was steady and commanding. Receiving this order, He Zhenghao felt a glimmer of relief and promptly agreed. "Gao Yuan, present." Gao Yuan's voice trembled. "Compile a list of the Kangyun Sea cultivators who perished in the recent war in Tianling Prefecture. Submit it to me in 10 days. Gao Yuan quickly agreed as well. The light from the Divine Spirit Jade Slip grew dim, eventually fading away entirely. The jade slip fell to the ground with a soft thud, accompanied by Li Fan's final words. "Remember, in my absence, Zhou Qingong has full authority to act on my behalf. His words are my orders." Zhou Qingong bowed slightly, expressing gratitude to the Lord Envoy, a faint smirk betraying his sense of triumph. He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan felt a pang of regret and jealousy. The trust of the Lord Envoy was supposed to belong to us. Yet they dared not complain, obediently carrying out their orders. With Li Fan personally confirming the plan, He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan diligently executed his will, terrified of failure. Years of careful management had given the two better control over Congyansi city than Li Fan himself. Under their direction, news of the imminent conclusion of the Great War and the new fundraising plan spread throughout the cultivators of the Congyansi within a single day. The revelations caused a great stir, leaving many unsettled. Countless messages were sent to He Zhenghao, inquiring about the truth of the situation. He Zhenghao naturally embellished the story further. Thus, 10 days later, a gathering of cultivators eagerly awaited Li Fan's arrival. Read extra chapters on greater than Spirit Stone Translation. Luli Island. He Zhenghao gazed at the island he had guarded for decades. Turning to the timid, bowing successor beside him, who nodded obsequiously, he couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Once upon a time, he too had been like this young man. Anxious and uneasy whenever superiors came to inspect. He had been terrified of making mistakes that would incur their wrath. Yet now, in just a few years, he had become the kind of big shot he once looked up to with fear and reverence. Encouraging the young successor, Zhao Changli, with a few words of advice, He Zhenghao confidently entered the Mountain River Star Formation. The mountains overhead shielded the gathering from prying eyes. Inside, cultivators invited by He Zhenghao had already been waiting for some time. Fellow Taoist He. As soon as He Zhenghao appeared, they warmly greeted him. To them, if Li Fan was the god of wealth, then He Zhenghao was the epitome of a generous distributor of fortune. After exchanging pleasantries, one impatient cultivator asked, "Fellow Taoist He, is it true what the Lord Envoy deduced? That the war is about to end? There's no sign of it. Just today, I heard the 10,000 Immortal Alliance vowed to fight to the bitter end." Before he could finish, others interrupted, voices clamoring. The Lord Envoy's divination techniques are unfathomable and flawless. If you don't believe, why bother coming here today? Hey, fellow Taoist He, ignore him. Tell us more about this open-ended fundraising plan. He Zhenghao raised his hands for silence, and the room quieted instantly. With a gentle smile, he began explaining the details. Hearing He Zhenghao personally confirm the matter, the cultivators were ecstatic. However, the scale of the fundraising effort was so enormous that even He Zhenghao couldn't fully reassure everyone. Doubts lingered among some. It was then that Li Fan made his entrance. A silver light descended from the sky, spilling through the mountain peaks. Li Fan, clad in a white Taoist robe, stepped gracefully on starlight. His seemingly leisurely pace brought him to the gathering in an instant. From him emanated rhythmic waves of power, instantly drawing everyone's attention. The cultivators present were all seasoned and well-off individuals, invited here because of their stature. Yet even they were deeply shaken by the lingering aura emanating from Li Fan. It was as though they were standing in the presence of the infinite mysteries of the universe. Even the slightest touch sparked profound insights in their minds. One cultivator, his face alight with joy, seemed to experience sudden enlightenment. Without regard for the setting, he closed his eyes and began meditating on the spot. What kind of power is this? Even a soul transformation true monarch wouldn't match up. Could it be that the Lord Envoy has recovered his original cultivation realm? The crowd exchanged uneasy glances, struggling to contain their astonishment. I've recently emerged from seclusion with some minor, insignificant breakthroughs, Li Fan said softly, but I've yet to fully adapt and suppress these changes. Forgive me for the disruption. The crowd trembled inwardly, their imaginations running wild, hastily assuring him there was no offense. Li Fan nodded slightly, waiting for the room to quiet down before speaking again. During this seclusion, not only have I advanced in cultivation, but I've also managed to repair the treasured artifact of my heavenly mechanism sect, the Heaven and Earth Divination Dice. This artifact was damaged during a forced divination at the Martial Hall. Though repairing it was no great challenge, I had a premonition that the time wasn't right, so I delayed. He spoke as a crystalline 20-sided die materialized in his hand, spinning and revealing fleeting glimpses of countless images within its translucent surfaces. Recently, my cultivation bore fruit, and I was struck with sudden inspiration. Realizing the time had come, I repaired it completely. During this process, I glimpsed a faint thread of the future. The crowd grew tense, listening intently. Hongxi and Xian, the two soul transformation true monarchs, may soon return to Kongyan Immortal City. You know, while I currently oversee the Kongyan Sea, it's only because these two are temporarily absent. When they return, both propriety and law demand I relinquish power. Li Fan's expression remained calm, as though recounting a matter unrelated to himself. When that happens, I will likely resign from my position as secret envoy and depart from the Kongyan Sea to wander the Immortal Alliance's heartlands. I've governed this region for a time, forming a connection with all of you. My success in rebuilding the Immortal City would not have been possible without your support. Thus, I've decided to help you one last time before my departure. Sweeping his gaze across the crowd, Li Fan declared, after this, our fates will be severed, and we may never cross paths again. The announcement caused a stir. None among them were naive. Though Li Fan claimed he was relinquishing power to avoid disputes, his actions suggested otherwise. If he truly intended to leave, he could simply step down. Why stage such a grandiose fundraising campaign and rally support? So that's it, he's laying the groundwork for a power grab, seeking our backing. Well, it's only natural. Ceding the leadership of an entire region isn't so easy, after all. Connecting the dots, many cultivators felt enlightened. Recalling how loyal supporters of Li Fan, like He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan, had all been richly rewarded after his political victories, they sensed an opportunity. Lord Envoy, you need not worry. We stand firmly behind you. Indeed, while Hongxi and Xian may have good reputations, they always remained aloof. None could compare to you, leading us to prosperity. Every time I've joined the Lord Envoy's fundraising initiatives, I've reaped immense rewards. In just a few years, my wealth has multiplied sixfold. I joined later, but I've still doubled my fortune. Support the Lord Envoy. With the Lord Envoy, we'll amass wealth and achieve enlightenment. The support snowballed as one cultivator after another voiced their allegiance. Li Fan's gaze flickered briefly toward He Zhenghao, who promptly retrieved pre-prepared contracts and registries from his storage ring, initiating the fundraising process on the spot. Amid the fervor and under Li Fan's sharp gaze, even those initially reluctant felt compelled to contribute. For appearances' sake, I used up a piece of human Dao stardust and several Dao enlightenment pills when I made my entrance, Li Fan mused silently. But no matter, I'll recover it all from this fundraising campaign. When Li Fan made his appearance, the silvery starlight radiating from him and the uncontrollable, enlightening aura of the Dao rhythm surrounding him naturally stemmed from the effects of the human Dao stardust and the enlightenment pills he had consumed. For this, Li Fan swallowed the previously refined human Dao stardust, which had the power to reverse the thoughts of his beloved, along with hundreds of enlightenment pills. All in one gulp. He didn't expect to fully absorb their essence but only needed their residual energy to spill out. Looking at it now, the intimidation effect worked quite well. As more and more contributions filled his pouch, Li Fan believed that unless something unforeseen occurred, this final round of fundraising should proceed smoothly. There was no longer any need to linger here, so Li Fan left quietly. Instead of returning to Kongyan City, he retreated to the hidden chamber he had excavated earlier in the depths of the ocean trench, once again going into seclusion. The heaven and earth divination dice. Li Fan's eyes sparkled as a crystalline die appeared in his hand. He toyed with it, his thoughts surging. The words he had spoken earlier were not entirely fabricated. During his prior interactions with this ancient treasure from the heavenly mechanism sect, fleeting, blurry visions occasionally appeared in his mind. These visions depicted apocalyptic scenes, scorched earth stretching for thousands of miles and the dead silence of Kongyan Sea. If an ordinary cultivator received such inexplicable premonitions, they would undoubtedly panic and be at a loss. However, Li Fan was unfazed. After all, he had witnessed far more terrifying scenarios, such as the utter annihilation of everything by the ink death. For Li Fan, something like the crimson flame burning the sea was just a minor scene. What truly intrigued him was the timing of these future visions sensed through the heaven and earth divination dice. It wasn't tied to the usual 28-year timeline he had experienced in his past reincarnations. Instead, it was happening earlier. Moreover, the timeline kept advancing as Li Fan made various moves in his current life. For instance, after he manipulated events to have Sikong Yi complete the Heavenly Doctor's mission. Or after he devised a plan for Han Yi to incite a great battle between the fisherman, the Heavenly Doctor, and the sage. Each time, the vision of the crimson flame burning the sea in the heaven and earth divination dice advanced significantly. Li Fan understood that the future was never fixed, nor was there any event destined to occur without fail. However, an event as monumental as the crimson flame burning the sea shouldn't be easily altered by his actions. Yet evidently, Li Fan had underestimated the impact of his moves on this apocalyptic event. Why would Kangyan witness the slaughter of all life by the spirit of heaven and earth? Even after the annihilation of the crimson flame, why would the will of heaven persist, sending out the formidable ink death to turn Kangyan into a complete wasteland? The intervention of ink death would reduce Kangyan to nothingness, a mutual destruction scenario detrimental to heaven and earth itself. And yet, heaven remained resolute. Kangyan must perish. This was something Li Fan had understood in his early cycles of reincarnation. But as for why, he still couldn't find a clue. However, in this life, after he actively facilitated the meeting between the heavenly doctor, the sage, and the fisherman, things began to shift. According to the visions from the heaven and earth divination dice, if the battle between the three truly took place, the crimson flame burning the sea, originally pegged for 28 years, would now occur by year 20 at the latest, 8 years earlier. The war among the heavenly doctor, the fisherman, and the sage had long been part of Li Fan's plan. It couldn't be altered simply because of this shift in timing. This was why Li Fan decided to launch the final fundraising campaign now. At present, everything was still just fragmented images from the heaven and earth destiny dice. It might take a few years for these events to materialize into a definitive outcome. If the red flame burning the sea really occurs earlier because of the frequent actions of the heavenly doctor and others, then things become truly intriguing. A glint of intrigue flashed through Li Fan's eyes. He thought again of the shattered fragments of the heavenly fiend sword, suppressed across various places by the spirit of heaven and earth. Li Fan, after several reincarnations in the Xuanwang realm and extensive study of its records, had gained a considerable understanding of its cultivation dynamics. While not omniscient, he had pieced together a substantial picture. He knew that ever since the establishment of the new cultivation laws, the conflict between cultivators and heaven and earth had become irreconcilable. Yet heaven typically countered cultivators indirectly, using mechanisms like law of incompatible cultivation, which subtly altered the fundamental rules of existence to purge cultivators. But the catastrophic calamity in Kangyan, with heaven's overt display of murderous intent, Li Fan had rarely encountered similar cases. Perhaps relevant records had been concealed, but for now, Kangyan was the only known example. What does this ultimately signify? A contemplative expression crossed Li Fan's face. Let's hope the heavenly doctor and the others can give me some enlightenment in this life. After the grand gathering of cultivators on Luli Island, it took less than a day for all the cultivators in Kangyan to receive confirmed news. The rumors were true. The reclusive Lord Envoy had personally emerged to validate them. And so began a grand frenzy. The high-yield fundraising plan, previously exclusive to cultivators with ties to Li Fan, was now open to all. The promise of a threefold return in 5 years seemed miraculous, but with the legendary cultivator of the Heavenly Mechanism sect leading the project, it didn't seem impossible. Cultivators eagerly spread the news, passionately debating how much contribution they should invest. Even the most cautious among them wavered in the face of such widespread enthusiasm. 45,000 contribution points, if I triple that. That would exceed 100,000. Sikong Yi's heart raced. Fellow Taoist Han was right. Cultivation is all about connections. Without the opportunity he left for me to work with He Zhenghao, when else could I have made this much? Fellow Taoist Han, you died well. With that thought, Sikong Yi didn't hesitate. He decided to bet everything he had on this fundraising campaign. This is a rare chance, never to be missed. My comeback hinges on this. Determination flickered in his eyes. Meanwhile, in Yuandao province, Han Yi, still carrying his hard-earned 100,000 contribution points, heard the news. Kangyan, Li Fan, threefold in 5 years. A spark of interest ignited within him. Since forcibly altering his fortune had caused a backlash, everything had been going poorly for him. His cultivation progress was slow, and his contribution points had already dwindled. Perhaps, hesitation flashed in Han Yi's eyes. My hard-earned 1 million contribution points didn't come easily. Besides, once this cycle of karmic backlash passes, who knows how long it will take. I should be more cautious. After pondering for a moment, Han Yi decided that seeing is believing. Since he had faced setbacks everywhere in Yuandao State, he might as well return to Kangyan to investigate personally before making any decisions. Thus, prompted by a spur of the moment to visit Yuandao State, Han Yi returned to his old stomping grounds after overhearing some intriguing news. Upon his return to Kangyansi, he was astonished by the heated discussions among cultivators about the fundraising plan of the Lord's secret envoy. The intensity of the debate far exceeded his expectations. Although not everyone blindly believed in it, a significant portion of Li Fan's loyal followers did. Believers and skeptics viewed each other as fools, each side eager to persuade the other. Amidst endless arguments, the topic only gained more traction, drawing many previously hesitant cultivators to participate. However, watching this scene, as lively as oil on a raging fire, Han Yi couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Before he could delve deeper into the source of his unease, a piece of news swept through the 10,000 Immortal Alliance like a storm. While it brought relief to countless cultivators, it also pushed the discussion about Li Fan's fundraising plan to a new peak. The 10,000 Immortal Alliance and the Five Elders Association had decided to cease hostilities. Once again, Master Li Fan's predictions had come true. Ever since Li Fan disseminated this information, people had been pulling strings and probing its authenticity, stirring a wave of public speculation. Yet, no concrete conclusions had been reached, until today. The prophecy had come true again. While sharp-eyed individuals suspected that the 10,000 Immortal Alliance had taken advantage of the situation to make a strategic retreat, it didn't detract from the mythical status of Li Fan's predictive prowess, which was elevated to a new pinnacle. Many cultivators who previously believed that this large-scale fundraising plan was merely a scam for Li Fan to pocket one last sum before absconding began to waver in their skepticism. Even those who had chosen to remain neutral were compelled by this ironclad evidence to join the fundraising frenzy. Following trends is a human instinct. Han Yi, still hesitant due to his lingering unease, was suddenly swayed by a new rumor. It was said that the overwhelming enthusiasm of the cultivators had led to contributions exceeding the original plan. Consequently, the previously promised, no upper limit, fundraising might be prematurely halted. The source of this rumor was unknown, but its vivid details immediately alarmed those who had yet to get on board. Although the representative of the Lord's secret envoy, He Zhenghao, promptly stepped forward to refute the rumor with righteous indignation, it couldn't change the fact that the efficiency of collecting contributions was slowing. Ironically, this only seemed to confirm the rumor's credibility, driving the cultivators into even greater urgency. Han Yi, too, couldn't resist any longer. In the fervent atmosphere, he acted impulsively, surrendering his remaining 910,000 contribution points. When the cold sea breeze cleared his head, Han Yi regretted his decision. At the very least, I should have kept some as backup, he lamented. But it was too late. A contract had already been signed, and within the 5-year lockdown period, the contribution points could not be withdrawn. In emergencies requiring urgent funds, a 30% penalty on the principal would be imposed, along with the forfeiture of any accrued interest. The terms were severe, and few cultivators would choose this route unless absolutely necessary. According to He Zhenghao, these strict rules were meant to prevent malicious sabotage. After all, Li Fan's high-profile fundraising had amassed a substantial sum, attracting jealousy from certain individuals eager to smear his reputation and seize a share for themselves. With so many cultivators involved, and given that Li Fan is the current supreme ruler of Kangyansi, there shouldn't be any problems. Han Yi tried to console himself, but his lingering unease remained. Penniless and uncertain of where to go, he aimlessly wandered Kangyansi, lost in thought. After an indeterminate time, Han Yi suddenly snapped out of his daze. Surveying his surroundings, he felt a strange sense of familiarity. This feeling, odd. I'm sure it's my first time here, he muttered, a hint of solemnity flashing in his eyes. Thanks to his cultivation of the Heavenly Fortune Sutra, Han Yi's sharp intuition wouldn't allow him to dismiss this déjà vu. He cautiously circulated his energy and surveyed the area. Moments later, his gaze fixed on a spot in the sky. All beings possess their own destiny. Yet, in Han Yi's vision, the seemingly empty space appeared strangely distorted. Something is hidden here. Han Yi felt a surge of excitement. Believing he had stumbled upon a great opportunity, Han Yi discreetly ensured no other cultivators were nearby. Confirming he was alone, he carefully ascended to the peculiar spatial distortion to investigate. Something's definitely off. After several hours of observation, Han Yi was convinced of his discovery. Yet, no matter how he tried, he couldn't find a way into the hidden space. Aware that prolonged exposure increased the likelihood of being discovered, Han Yi grew anxious. Such a significant opportunity couldn't be shared with others. At that moment, a vague image flashed through his mind. Stunned, Han Yi quickly mimicked the actions of the figure in his vision. He stepped back, then suddenly accelerated to his maximum speed, charging toward the distorted space. A dark light enveloped him as he passed through. In the next moment, Han Yi found himself standing before two enigmatic entities. Azure Wind, a broken sword, his eyes turned blood red, and his mind descended into chaos. Just as he was about to lose control and rush toward the fragments of the spirit of heaven and earth, a faint glimmer from the feather in his dantian saved him once again. Encased in its glow, Han Yi regained a shred of clarity. Resolute, he averted his gaze from the extraordinary sight of Azure Wind and the broken sword and unleashed his full cultivation to escape. Soon, Han Yi fled the strange space, coughing up blood. The mystical feather in his dantian was badly damaged, its once proud plumes now shriveled and listless.